panelists. And please refrain your questions. We do have, if you look at your itinerary, you'll see that there will be a time for you to have personal questions with Mr. Chris. Okay? All right. Well, actually with all the panelists, but it will be after the entertainment. So there will be question and answers, but from 8:30 to 9 p.m., if you didn't get a chance to ask your questions, the panel will still be here for the answer. At least I don't Chris and Double O will be here. All right, so I'm going to turn the mic over to the panelists. Please put your hands together. Truth Bay.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We were going to show you a video as Dr. Cofer gets that prepared. My name is Double O. I want to take the time to introduce Zion, our lovely, equitable host. Please. I want to also thank Dr. Cofer, our wonderful muy importante brother by the name of Chris Lodginson, who has done some mighty So at this time, we want to give it up to God first, and whatever creator or source that you find is omnipotent and keeps blessing all of us and anointing all of us to be who and what we are. Let's take some time out to just take a deep breath in, and let it out, push it out to the far corners of the universe. Almighty Creator God, we come before you in most esteemed thankfulness. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah! That you created us, that you gave us this space to come together, to put our mind, thoughts to pen and paper, and to give our wonderful city a chance to stand up for this reparations and redress that our mighty people so deserve. We thank you for these opportunities, and we thank you for this moment. We thank you for all these beautiful people here tonight. We ask that you will pour out a most anointed Holy Ghost fire type of revival on everyone in here. Give the older men dreams, give the young children even more dreams, and oh yes, above all and everything else, make them manifest. Hallelujah. In the mighty name of Yahshua, Emmanuel, Jesus Christ, our Savior, we praise and thank you, Allah, and everything else in between. Thank you. All right, and now, what would you need, sis? You're going to take it to the, HDMI. My portal, like it's just in my phone. All right, so Zion had a, oh wait, we got a real star in the building. We're going to give out shouts to Dee Dee Simpson, who's Simon. Simon, I can't believe I said that, thinking of Dee Dee is in the building, guys, and she's going to bless us with some wonderful vocals. This sister is an esteemed singer. She won Apollo, and she is on America's Got Talent right now, so you guys can vote for the sister, okay? All right. So this is our Sacramento board. Oh, that's something later. I apologize. So, as I was saying, we had a question and answer symposium type of style that we were going to do. But before we got to our mayor candidate, Flo Cofer and Kevin McCarty, we were going to have some words from Chris himself, who was going to tell us what 1040, these Senate bills that are going to give us our reparations here in California and spread like wildfire throughout the nation, is Senate Bill 1403, 1331, and 1050. And Chris, brother, thank you.
1, 2. So, do you mind if I stand up and do this part? All right, so I'm gonna do this, stand it up, and I'm a little bit of a walker too, so I'm gonna be walking around a little bit too. But first of all, thank you. Thank everybody who's here. Thank you for being here. This is a beautiful room. Can y'all kind of put your hands together for yourself right now? So real quick, Chris Lawson, I'm lead organizer with the Coalition for Just and Equitable California, also policy manager at the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. At the Coalition for Just and Equitable California, we work on reparations. We are the only organization in the state, first and so far only organization in the state born just for reparations and reparative justice for Black folks whose ancestors were enslaved here in this country. In 2019 and 2020, we had the pleasure and the honor of working with the person who this gentleman here works for, then Assemblymember, now of course Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. By the way, please give a warm welcome here to my brother Kip, who is with the Secretary of State's office. Our Secretary of State, Dr. Weber, is the author of the bill that created the California Reparations Task Force. So in 2020, Dr. Weber introduced something called AB Assembly Bill 3121. That bill created the first reparations task force at the state level in the country's history and in the state's history. That bill created a 9-member group of people or team whose job it was to do 3 things in 2 years. 3 things in 2 years. The first thing this group of people was asked to do was study reparations with a focus on what California is responsible for. But hold on. I thought there wasn't no slavery in California. I thought California was a free state, right? No. There were thousands of African Americans enslaved right here in California, some right here in Sacramento County where we are right now. And we have reports just in the last several years from the Sacramento Bee, et cetera, with stories about young Black women being enslaved and sold here in Sacramento County as late as 1864. That's a year after the Emancipation Proclamation, a year after they let us go. So study reparations with a focus on what California is responsible for. Second thing, educate the public. Tell the public what you found out. And part of how the task force started doing that, and we are continuing that work, is by holding public hearings, community meetings, et cetera, et cetera. This is part of how we're continuing to educate the public about what we learned. And the third thing this group of people was asked to do, this task force was asked to do, was develop actual reparations recommendations. What are the reparations? How much? To who? When? Where? All those things. And the task force did that. They released a report with all of those things in it. And that report is long. It's about 1,100 pages. Okay. There's about 115 different things that the State Reparations Task Force said that the state must do. If you are interested in finding that report, it's available right now online. If you don't have time to read 1,100 pages though, that's fine. We are right now as an organization every Thursday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, we read a piece of that report to you. Okay, so we are reading the report piece by piece every week, Thursday on our YouTube channel. Before I go any further and talk about what happened next and where we are right now, if I can, and then give you an update on what's happening right now, because we have some big things to talk about that happened this week. But if you can, for a moment, stop what you're doing, if you are doing something. I usually start this way. I usually start by saying, every single one of you, every single one of us is sitting and living inside of a history book right now. people are gonna be, and already, reading, writing, talking about what you did, about what we did here now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now. That is literally the truth. That is because of a few things. First, as I mentioned, California is already the first state to create a reparations task force. No state did it before us. After we did it, Illinois passed the bill to create a state reparations task force. New York passed the bill to create a state reparations task force. There's a bill in Jersey. There's a bill in Georgia. Texas is on the way. There are about 100 different cities and counties across the country who are doing something called reparations after California started working. San Francisco created a city-level reparations task force. LA created a city-level reparations commission. The city of Berkeley has one. Alameda County, as a county, has a reparations task force. Culver City has one. And now, and part of why we're here today, is because now the city of Sacramento is asking us, do we want a reparations task force here at the city level? Put your hand up right now if you think Sacramento should have a city-level reparations task force. Okay? And we're gonna talk about why. Okay? 2 hands is good too. Okay? And most of you, if not all of you, hopefully filled out the survey that was a part of your registration for today's event. There's a reparations survey that the city has out right now that is a way for the city and the mayor's office specifically to understand what you think about whether the city of Sacramento should do what other cities and of course what the state of California is doing. So I mentioned there's this task force, 9 people on it. They had 2 years to do 3 things. 2 years to do 3 things. They finished those 3 things in the middle of last year. So they finished their work. But what happens after that? All right. So the task force only had the power to make recommendations. They couldn't actually do what they were recommending. Instead, they gave all of their recommendations to the governor, to the state senate, and to the state assembly and said, y'all take these recommendations, y'all take these 115 things for who should be eligible and for how much and all that, and y'all make them actually real. Y'all take them from words to action. And happy to report, as soon as we crossed into and passed and through January 1 of this year, we were in more history. We were in more uncharted territory. That is because starting this year, there were about 20 different bills introduced by members of our state legislature based on recommendations of the State Reparations Task Force. So some of our state senators and assembly members said, I like what's in that report, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna put it in a bill. I'm gonna try to make it a law. And right now there are about 20 different things that are trying to become law right now based on the recommendations of the State Reparations Task Force. I'm gonna talk about 4 of them right now in the last 3 minutes that I have here. So, 5, okay, all right. So, the first one is, I'm gonna start with the most recent thing. So, firstly, California right now, like 16 other states, and like our federal government, is still practicing a form of slavery. You can, right now, be enslaved, forced to work for free or close to free, right now, if what? If, right on, thank you, sir. If you are punished for a crime, right? Right? If you are punished for a crime, and Assemblymember McCarty said, please put your hands together for Assemblymember McCarty, and Dr. Blow as well, please. And Assemblymember is absolutely right, because just in the last 48 hours, California State Senate and Assembly, in concurrence, passed ACA 8, okay, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 8, to remove the ability for California as a state to force labor inside of our prison. So the first thing at the top, right on. Okay. Now, that's important, but the work isn't finished yet, because when we pass that bill this week, what that means is that now the opportunity to stop this is on us. Right now, or between now and November, And through November, you and I will have an opportunity to vote on whether or not California should stop current slavery going on inside of our prisons right now. So that's the first thing that the task force said. The second thing that the task force said is, and I'll 2.5 minutes, all right? So first, or in addition to that, the task force said, we need a state agency, a system, a office, some kind of way for people to go to apply for reparations, to show that they're eligible, to have their claims and their payments processed. Okay, we need some kind of system. Every other person, every other group that got reparations, there's some kind of system, some kind of office, some kind of agency set up to do all of those things. It was the case for our friends and family with the Japanese American community. It was the same for our folks who survived the Jewish Holocaust. There was some kind of system, office, agency set up to do all of the things, to cut them their checks, et cetera, et cetera. So just in the last week or so, and early this year, our state introduced and then has been passing a bill called Senate Bill 1403, which would create a state agency whose job it would be to implement and monitor all things related to reparations. Okay, this is the place, this will be the place you go to apply, to show that you're eligible, to help you show that you're eligible, to get your claims and your payments processed. SB 1403. Another bill that I want to talk about quickly in a minute and a half. Three? All right. Slow down. SB 1331, okay? And I want to say two things about SB 1331. And by the way, when I say SB, I mean Senate bill, okay? SB means Senate bill. When I say AD, I mean Assembly bill, okay? So, for Senate Bill 1331, this bill would create what we call the California Reparations and Reparative Justice Fund, okay? There's no way to do reparations without funding. No way to do it. Reparations must be funded. And I'm also happy to report that just this week in our state budget, for the first time ever, there is now a line item inside the budget for reparations. The state, with the help of our state senators and assembly members, the state put to start about $12 million in a fund and set it aside just to start seeding funding for reparations. Now we know more has to come in there, but we've never had a line item for reparations in the budget ever. Again, we're sitting and living inside of a history book right now. Okay? So, last bill I want to talk about is SB 1050, Senate Bill 1050. This is a bill introduced to start. So the way I talk about this bill usually is I usually talk about it as really honoring the first and original promise that was promised our ancestors of 40 acres and a mule. So this bill, SB 1050, really is about starting to return property to folks and descendants of persons who were enslaved in this country, who had their property taken unjustly by the state through things like what we call eminent domain. Basically, if the state took your property unjustly and you are a descendant of slavery, you will have three options available to you. First, if the state still has the property, the state can offer you the return of that property back to you. Secondly, if the state does not have that property, but if there's a property of equal value, then the state can offer you that property. Thirdly, if you don't like either of those options, the state can then pay you out, compensate you at the fair market value of that property, and let you take the money and go do what you want to do with it, okay? So those are four bills that I want to start with. There are about 20 in total. Keep in mind, every year, probably for the next several years, if not 5 to 10 years, there's going to be some kind of reparations bills moving at the state level. And with that, I think I'll pause. I don't know if we want to take questions now or later. That
Right, we're going to pause
Okay.
with this wonderful plethora of information.
Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. So at the end, because we're respectful of our busy candidates' time, and they are so gracious to come down here and meet with the people, because we got some real ones in the building, guys. We have some real, true, anointed people who are public servants. And at this time, I'm gonna pass the mic to our esteemed Zion, who's gonna start off the questions. We're gonna ask two questions each. Zion has a question, I have 2 questions, and we'll end with Zion for our 2 candidates. And as Brother Chris said, after that, we will come back after some wonderful performances and then ask him some questions and answers live and direct from the people. And we most definitely will not forget our Dr. Truth here. She's hiding behind that podium, but she was supposed to be at the symposium table too, but Truth can do what she wanna do, because this woman here is a goddess, okay? She's a child of God, the Most High. All right, so at this moment, I will pass the mic.
Yes, thank you, everyone. So like Chris was saying, that we have a reparation at the city level. And then the 2 potential mayors, Dr. Flo and Kevin McCarty, are right now, as we know, they're running for to be a mayor. So of course, we want to make them accountable before they get in there. So I know the city mayor initiated the reparation program. So when you guys get elected and when you get into the office, I know sometimes politicians, they forget, what it was promised or started. So what is it, I'm gonna start with Dr. Flo and then Kevin McCarty. So are you guys gonna be accountable when it comes to reparation at the city level to create program? What are you gonna do once you get elected?
Well, good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to be here with you. My name is Dr. Flo Cofer, and I'm running for mayor of Sacramento. And so, Zion, I want to thank you, first of all, for putting this on and for everyone who helped out, but especially for this question, because you're right. Sometimes we can have short memories, and we also can be reluctant to commit to things, because then we're worried about what we said and whether or not we live up to it. So I am a candidate who has the word reparations on my campaign page, and it's been there for well over a year. Because I work at Public Health Advocates, and about 6 years ago, we started working on, after Prop 64 was passed and legalized marijuana, and we said, that's interesting, because it's been criminalized for so long. Let's actually take a look and analyze the data with UCLA, $1 Million Hoods, and with UC Davis Center for Regional Change. And we published a report called When the Smoke Clears. And one of the things we saw was that Sacramento, across the state, Black people were 4 to 7 times more likely to have been arrested for marijuana-related offenses than our white counterparts. But in Sacramento in particular, we have the dubious distinction of having the highest disparity rate of 29 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than white people in Sacramento County. And so one of the things I want to make sure we absolutely need to talk about slavery reparations, and that's why we're here. But I also want us to talk about all of the other things that were racially motivated that continue to go on, because what I don't want to have happen is in 16, we're having a conversation about, well, how do we make good on the war on drugs and all the harm that we did? There are people who are alive right now who have names and faces who deserve some sort of investment right now for the harm that was caused when the line of legalization crossed over them. And so one of the things I think we should be looking at the city level is, how do we make good with the marijuana tax revenue? And I also think we need to think about municipal reparations overall. And there is a person currently in Darrell Steinberg's office, Kelly Fong-Rivas, who is she's a senior advisor for racial equity. It's a position that, as mayor, I plan to keep on. And one of the things in her portfolio is developing the municipal reparations task force and identifying a plan. And that is something that I want to carry forward. So you can count on me for that.
Thank
you. Good evening. Good to see you all here. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, this is an important topic, and I'm going to spend a few moments talking about the overall topic. But why am I not going to forget about this? From one, Queen Sheba, Zion, you won't make me forget it. But number 2, this is in my DNA and my work. I look at the reparations task force in the book. My name is on there as one of the 12 legislators of the Legislative Black Caucus who's working on this. I have a bill, part of the 15 that's in the package. I'm a co-author of these measures, and I'm going to make sure we lean in on this issue. But it's not just the city of Sacramento working on this. We all need to work on this. Right. And the truth of it is, and I talk to lawmakers who have to vote on this, this is a big quest. It's been 400+ years since 1619 in Jamestown. We're not going to turn this overnight. This is gonna be a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10-year quest. But the most important thing is we're talking about it right now. We're talking about it in the legislature. Sure, some people get up and give speeches, Republicans, but they're not the issue. It's our Democrats we need to make sure invest in this. We need to make sure we're talking to rooms that don't look like this.
Right.
Because we got this room,
Right,
but what about all the other rooms?
right, that part.
And I'll tell you, as somebody who's one of 120 people out of 40 million people who write laws in California, this shit's hard.
Okay.
In order to get this passed, you need to focus on extreme pushback to say no. So it's gonna take time. We have $12 million in this budget. That's more than we ever had before. And we're talking about reparations, but there is pushback. And whether we're in a budget deficit, like we are now, or a budget surplus like we were 2 years ago, this is always going to be hard. There's always going to be competing interests. So the big picture is talking about what this means. Certainly, reparations is acknowledgement. It's the apology, it's the acknowledgements moving forward. But I think the bigger issue that we need to focus on, we just focused on this homeless census you may have read about 2 weeks ago, about the homeless counts going down. Some people say it's the same, what have you. But buried in that homeless count, and you probably know this, and you see it when you drive around Sacramento and see the encampments, homelessness is not equal, right? And so the issues that we need to talk about are how our issues impact all of us. We think it's morally right to do this, to right a wrong, a 400+ year wrong, but it's good public policy, you know? Let's face it, the Black population or homeless is way above the population of overall. You know about our population and youth expulsions in our elementary schools, even preschool, our incarceration rates. And so we need to connect the dots by making these investments, not only is morally right, but help solve our problems. And so, yeah, as the City of Sacramento Mayor, I'm going to continue in keeping a racial equity advisor out on the mayor's payroll, make this a priority. And I think what I'm going to be focused on is using my experience and relationships to leverage state resources to make this a reality. And number two, the city budget, we're in a tough time. We have a $66 million gap right now. We can barely pay for our parks and our public safety and what have you. I don't see us having a lot of resources, but it's not always about money. It's about programs and policy. And Dr. Flo's right. Looking at other ways that we do our city business, finding how ways that we could integrate this work into that. And so it's going to be a continued quest. We're not going to get there overnight, but we're talking about it and we're on our way. In California, I'm so proud, is one of 3 states in the nation leading on this. Yes, you are. And this was, I will say, it was that summer of 2020, summer of George Floyd. We passed these police reform bills. We passed this and people thought this is never going to go. And here we are talking about it and California is leading the way. And again, this is just the beginning.
Excellent. Now, we have a flyer that's floating around. May I see that flyer there, Jared? So, as Chris was mentioning, there are 5 main things that, there really are 12, and probably 120 as he was stating. But the food, social, criminal, environmental, economic justice for the African American Black community is on everybody's pressing minds and thoughts. And just pick one. We'll flip a coin out of you two and tell us, what would you implement for policy out of food, social, criminal, environmental, economic justice for the African American community? I'll let you guys think. 5 seconds, which one you want, and you don't have to tell us. Yeah, there's the menu. And just let the people know what your thoughts are if you were to create a policy or some avenues for us to get brainstorming on what good policy would look like for one of those specific topics.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go and then we can switch order. So when I look at this list, what I see undergirding a lot of it is economic justice. Because with economic justice, you have the ability to be able to have greater access to some of the things that can help to ameliorate some of the others. So what I would say is overall, we need all of them, right? And we understand that we don't live single issue lives. We can't be single issue voters. And we can't have a single issue policy to be able to talk about something that was, I mean, this was, you know, the economic engine. Slavery was the economic engine for the United States, right? This was how we got things done here. And so I find myself really frustrated when I hear things like, well, we should let the market decide. The market doesn't have a soul. The market doesn't decide. We as humans need to decide, because the last time the market decided, it decided that it was advantageous to go to another continent, steal a bunch of people and steal land, kill off the people who were there, and make all the money you can because you maximize profits and minimize, right, your costs. So we don't let the market decide. And so I think what we're talking about here really is an integrated approach. And I think economic justice, if I had to choose one, would be a place that I would start, because it would help us to be able to address some of the other challenges. But of course we need, you know, clean environments and safe environments. Of course we need our criminal justice system not to look like our unhoused population, to Assemblymember McCarty's point, right? These things are interrelated, right? Some of our unhoused folks are in and out of our jails constantly, right? And the reasons are because our schools failed them. And so many of them are, right, like there is a correlation. There's a reason why we can predict, right, based on literacy rates and other things, how many more jails and prisons to build, because we can see the pathways. And so what we're trying to do is be disruptive in the most productive way. And I think one of the ways to be able to do that is to create economic justice, so that we're actually able to have more control over the time and the resources that we have in our communities.
And I'm gonna pick the same topic. Is that okay, Dr. Flo? Okay. And it's because I think that's the one that's in the city's control the most. They're all important: food, criminal, social, environmental. But I think if you look at the reparations, economic opportunity is one thing that's the weave and all those things. All of our bills are focusing on economic mobility. That's why my reparations bill, that's going to be signed by the governor this year, focuses on education and career education. Focusing on a pipeline for a career, for a job. And we want to make sure that people are at the front of the list, not the back of the list, are Black Californians. So I have a bill which would prioritize our $1 billion career education program that we created during the boom a couple of years ago, and make sure that schools in areas that have high Black populations are first in line to get those kids signed up for high quality career education programs. If you look at the programs around California, the schools that have the high Black populations are the ones that are back on the list. So what I'll do as mayor is leverage state opportunities. It's not always keeping score where all these opportunities are for our community. But one thing that I really want to give props to the city council on, which I think is a fabulous idea, is just up the street here. We have this project called Aggie Square, which as an assembly member, I helped launch that, put money in there to make the project here as opposed to the rail yards or West Sacramento. Why? Because right adjacent to Oak Park, historically Black neighborhood. As we know, not that Black now after the last 20 years of gentrification, but we got our roots there. We got our roots. We got some fixes there too. We have some roots, as we know. So I want to make sure that as we do major economic development projects, we have workforce agreements with the labor unions and with community groups to make sure that people who are first in line to get jobs look like Sacramento. And so we had a little bit of that with the downtown plaza and arena being built there, some other issues there. We also have that launched over here, this Aggie Square project. So any major economic development, I think we need to have, you know, a workforce agreement, opportunities to lift up people who are left behind. And I think that this whole reparations conversation, people get freaked out that don't look like us in this room.
Right.
That you guys all want paychecks, this and that. No, but how about economic opportunity? That's all people want.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know, help those help themselves. And so I think this is the best place to go after it. And I think we can get broad support from council members and the community to make it happen. So we need to be realistic as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. So before we ask, we're gonna have you guys ask questions too, but I have for Dr. Flo, the question I have is you are in public service. So when we look at our community, our safety and our health and wellness in our community, with the community violence and police violence, we don't feel safe. Our kids don't feel safe, so they still being killed out there. So what type of policy would you create to protect our community from being vulnerable, especially our kids out there? And for Kevin McCarty, the question I have for you is, you are in education.
Were you the same question?
No, for you in education, because when it comes to our education system, is really failing our community, especially Black community. They're not really teaching the right education for our kids to thrive, and instead, they're actually setting them up to get into jail so they can keep on making money off them. So how do we break that chain from, education policy? So,
Can we both answer those questions?
yes, please.
Yeah, they're both great questions, and we want to make sure. So let's focus on the first question. On policing, I can tell you what I want to do, but you know someone's future by looking at their past, right? So my first day as an assembly member 10 years ago, it was kind of two questions. I introduced a bill on universal free preschool and independent investigations of police shootings. So I introduced this bill way before it was popular. People thought I was crazy, and it was killed 5 times in 7 years. You know what made the bill pass? Watching George Floyd get murdered on TV. It's the one reason. That summer, also my bill passed to restore voting rights for the formerly incarcerated. That same summer, we passed a reparations bill too. So sometimes the window opens to bring about this opportunity for systemic change. So I'm not just running for mayor saying I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I've been doing it when it was hard and have scars to show it. That being said, Sacramento and communities across California have done, I think, a good job in focusing on de-escalation processes. I think it's not enough. One thing that I think is the reality is, do you know how much money we pay every year in police payouts for excessive force? Too much. They're buried in the group council reports. Maybe not enough, but you know how much, if the public knew how much we paid in that, they would say we've had enough, right? In LA, they have to do bonds through Wall Street to pay off their settlements. They call them police brutality bonds. These Wall Street guys making money off of this. So what I want to do, I actually have a bill right now. It's going to go to the governor's desk to help. I'm not sure it's going to pass. It's going to cost cities money, but I want to have the city automatically have to report these on an annual basis. It shouldn't be because of some reporters digging around the closed session notes. We should say how much we're paying every year. Because now, what does that mean? We're talking about trimming back public safety, fire, parks, youth programs in our city budget. Well, if we didn't pay out so much over here, we'd have more money for that. Right. So there'd be more of a push from our community. But you know what? Get our act together. Focus on ways how we can have policing that brings about, community response. Am I talking too long? You gotta cut me off. No. We're going like this. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's an issue that I am committed to. I don't have all the answers today, but I'm gonna work with the community and stay on the task, because that's where I've been, that's who I am, and that's where I will go as mayor of Sacramento.
Okay, yes, these are two really great questions. And so I first will say, obviously the city does not have control over the schools, but what we can be is really good thought partners in our schools. And so one of the things that I'm thankful to be endorsed by Sac City Teachers Association and also by SEIU 1021, which covers all of the other unclassified staff that are in our schools. And so one of the things I want to work with them on are the challenges that are facing them, right? So when we think about, our elementary school students, when I was at the Urban League as one of the young professionals, we had a program called Reading Day. And every first Friday, we went into Fairbanks Elementary School in North Sacramento to be able to read to the students, starting in first grade all the way through third grade. Why? Because we wanted them to be excited about reading. We wanted them to have books that looked like them, and to actually have a conversation about what they were reading. And so I really think that our elected officials should be more involved in school. The benefit of going to school in Sacramento is that you should know your city council member, your mayor, your county supervisor, your assembly member, your senator, and shoot, sometimes the governor. That should be the benefit of going to school in the capital of the 5th largest economy on planet Earth. You should have an additional advantage. And so that's what I'm thinking about as I think about the future of Sacramento is how do we take advantage of these? How do we partner with the library? So we're having a book club with our elementary school students, and we're going in there on occasion to be able to say, hey, we're here and let's talk about this. How do we make it so that our high school students get to be part of participatory budgeting so that we give little small sums of money to all the schools every year and the students get to decide what projects they want to fund and then actually implement them so they better understand the process of governance. This is what I think is the city's partnership. And I think if we have budget issues, we don't bully in public our, school boards to be able to help fill in when we're struggling with the money to be able to fund public transit for K-12 students. We go to them as our colleagues and as our partners and say, can we work something out for the budget? They shouldn't be reading about it in the paper and hearing about it after it's already been announced. So I think as a city, we can be a better partner to schools, and I deeply respect the division between schools and the city because both of my parents were public school teachers. My mom taught 8th grade English and my dad taught 8th grade math. And so I know firsthand the ways in which we put a lot on our teachers and we don't always provide the support. And I think what our city should be thinking about is how do we work with the institutions that support other people in our communities? Because we recognize Sacramento should not have the distinction of suspending more Black students than any other place in the state. And that's a problem that isn't just in the classroom, it's also about what we're providing and supporting to be able to make sure that these environments are healthy and safe for our students. Which brings me to public safety, because schools are the institutions that our children are interfacing with. And when they step out of school, they're back out with us. So there has to be a partnership there. We have to be thinking about what kind of environment are we creating for our kids. And one of the environments we want to create is one where they can move around without being harmed. This year alone, we've had more people be killed or severely injured in traffic incidents than we have shootings. And so that's also a part of safety. And so when I look right now and see that the city is now eligible for a Caltrans grant that they have to apply for by September that would provide millions of dollars to be able to help create some of the safety in those intersections where people are most likely to be killed and severely injured, I want to make sure that we have money in our budget to be able to have the small match required for us to get that, because that saves lives. I want to make sure that when our city council invested several years ago in our violence prevention and intervention network, the network that got us 2 years with none of our young people being killed right here in Sacramento, that was 2017 to 2020. We had 0 homicides of our young people. And what we should have been doing was taking banners from City Hall in every school with those countdowns that you see on job sites that say, it has been 642 days since the last shooting, let's turn it over and make it 643, right? That's what we should have been doing. We should have been celebrating it, and instead, we let it go away because nobody even knew it was happening. And so I think there's a part of setting clear goals about what we're gonna do that also allows us to be able to celebrate our wins and also encourages us to keep going when we have something good. And so I want to go back to no youth homicides in the city of Sacramento. I want the people who are intervening with folks who are high risk and low risk, because it is so much easier to build strong, to build strong children than it is to repair broken adults. And so I want to make sure we invest early. And in order to do that, we have to have a budget. 4 years ago, the city of Sacramento's police budget was $156 million. Now it is $250 million per year. That is an increase of $100 million per year going forward. Every year that budget has gone up. So anybody who tells you that we're taking money away from the police budget is lying to you, because the numbers are right there in black and white. And Assemblymember McCarty is absolutely correct. On page 32 of last year's budget, it says right there in black and white that police, or that it actually says lawsuits are one of the fiscal conditions that our city has to plan around. Fiscal conditions. Our city's credit rating has gone down, which means that we pay more on our premiums, and then we also have to find ways to be able to pay for these bad contact payments. And those are payments that we're making, and then we're having a conversation about why we need to cut $1 billion from K-12 transportation for schools. This doesn't even make any sense. Right. And so, yes, we need to know more about it, but we also, to talk about track records, I've been talking about this too, with many of you for years. I've been saying, hey, this is a problem. I've been saying, here's how we save some money using some of the process and efficiency recommendations that the city paid several $100,000 for 5 years ago. So yes, we have a budget problem in part because we pay for good advice and don't take it.
Right, exactly.
In part because we don't let the quiet part be out loud that would make people upset. And so what I want is more of our leaders actually naming the problems and saying this is a challenge and this is not something we should stand for. And that's what you can come to expect from me as your next mayor, is I'm not gonna pretend that the water's not wet. And I'm also going to name that here's what we need to do, and we're building a people-powered coalition to be able to do that with you. So it doesn't just stop in November and you stop hearing what's going on, that you're involved in the decisions that the city makes every single day, including our budget decisions. Because I do not think most people in Sacramento are happy with how our money has been spent. I knocked $25,000, 25,000 houses in the primary, and I can tell you, every single house, from the most affluent to the least, said, I don't feel the safest in Sacramento.
Exactly.
Said, I'm worried about the increasing in costs, and I'm worried about homelessness, and I'm worried about if there's a future for me in this town if you were 18 to 30. That's what I heard from people. And so those are the challenges that we're facing, and they come from a legacy of some of the harms we've done. So to the point about, how do we handle this? For me, step one is gonna be, and I recognize somebody looking like me having to do this, but I gotta start with an apology tour. We have harmed communities in Sacramento. And as the representative of the city, I have to start by saying I'm sorry and hearing out people's pain, because we cannot build with people. It's hard to get over and be friends again if somebody hasn't said they're sorry for what they did to you. And so knowing that, I know that's one of the first steps we have to. And we have to bring people together, and we have to have these conversations. And yes, we have to have them in rooms with people who don't necessarily look like us. But that's called relational organizing. And we can't be the most integrated city in the country and not be able to reach out and talk to our neighbors. That's the value of Sacramento. We have a lot in common, and it's a good place to organize. And that's what I want to see us do moving forward for our city, to address all of these institutional challenges that we have and make sure that we feel safe here.
Thank you.
I didn't do a combo like her.
Right.
I was a high school dropout. I don't have a PhD. I
I
did drop out of high school, and I have a witness here, my high school classmate. But I bounced back, and here I am today.
And after that, we're gonna go to a question from Mama Ross, and I saw one other lady.
You look like you're 42, I'm sorry.
From
Yes.
our public.
No, our education system is not on the agenda, what we do as the mayor and city council, but our job as elected officials, and I've been doing it for 20 years, solving problems. People come up to me like, you're my guy, you're McCarty,
Right.
you're a Congress member. No, you do something, you help me. Yes, I help you. So people don't know what it is. You all do, I'm an assembly member, but people think that we are elected to help solve problems. And that's what I think we need to do, and not say, oh, that's the school's job and this job, because let's face it, all these kids are our kids. It's my top 3 things on my campaign: housing, homelessness, and our youth. Right, because young people are 50% of the present, but 100% of the future. So I need to make sure that we focus on that. I have girls in high school, 15-year-olds. I know about education. Anybody can help me with 2 teenage girls, please see me afterwards. A lot going on in our household. That's a lot going on, 2 teenagers. 2 twins. Yes. So we need to make sure that how we can focus on helping our schools. I think what Dr. Cofer said is right, how we can augment what's happening. One big thing that I'd like to do is, as the assembly member, I did write the laws on universal preschool and universal after-school programs. We're now going to cities across California and saying, hey, we have money for you. But what's happening is some of these cities aren't ready, and they're sending the money back to the state budget. Whereas that money literally could end up in like the public safety budget. So we need to make sure it stays for our youth. So what I want to do as mayor is convene our nonprofits and find out who else can step up and do after school programs. So I know a young kid from McClatchy was gunned down over there in New Helvetia, CV Circle. I always get the name wrong because I'm a lifer in Sacramento. So over there, the public housing a few days ago. There was a kid from Rancho Cordova that was gunned down over here in Talek Village just 2 weeks ago as well. And these are teenagers. They should be focusing on opportunities. They should be living, most importantly. But we have programs that are run by, Joe Roberts, Roberts Family Services, Councilmember Jennings, all the families that, that run these after-school programs, but not for everybody. And now it's universal for everybody, but that only works if we have people signing up saying, I want to do that. So as mayor, I'm going to convene educators, nonprofits, community people to help work on, the technical assistance and get their resources department ready so they can apply to serve these programs throughout Sacramento. That's one thing that we do run. As mayor, I'm not going to promise to do everything that I can't do. A lot of people run for office and promise rainbows and unicorns. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about what I can do. What I can do is focus on what the city does. The city runs our after-school programs. We could do a better job. There's money on the table. I'm going to make sure we get our fair share, plus the other cities that aren't doing their fair share, that don't want it. We'll take ours and make sure we serve everybody. So I'm going to really make that a top priority. We also have youth programs. My kids, the 15-year-olds, have been through every city program over the years. They've probably been through 20 programs, learning how to swim, tiny tots, to after school, 4th R, junior giants, the whole works. Last year, they focused on this teen academy where they got a stipend, they learn about financial literacy, they learn how to balance a checkbook, there's been ATMs and credit cards, and it was free, and they gave the kids $500. And there was we went and looked where they're available, and there was a program up in North Sacramento at Robertson Center. There was like 30 slots available, and there were 17 empty slots. That's what makes me so sad as an elected official all those years. I go visit these programs that serve, and it makes me happy. When I drive away, I see kids out there who could benefit from it. They have no idea. It might as well be in a foreign country. So what I think that I want to continue to do, is connect the dots. There were 17 slots. These kids learned how to do it. These kids learned how to make a resume, learn about banking system, learn about working with others, and it was free. And they give them $500 at the end of the day, and people weren't signing up. So the city can do a much better job, and I'm going to continue to do that to connect the dots.
Awesome. I'm gonna mosey over here to Mama Ross. Would you please stand up for me and ask your question?
Well, thank you so much.
And you can sit. It's okay.
Well, I can stand.
This Bose is up in here, y'all. She in that garden.
Well, yes, I have seeds. I plant seeds. My children are the seeds. The children of our community are our seeds. And that brings me to public safety. You need to know I'm still healing from trauma. We all suffered under George Floyd. But more specifically, I suffered under Stephon Clark. That was my neighbor. His grandmother is my neighbor. The Stephon Clark bill has no teeth. That bill does not have any money for training. And it is the oversight for it is at the leisure of the municipality. So Sacramento does not have any money for retraining the police, and it's at the discretion of the city manager. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. You need to know I'm not happy because my seeds won't come up. Economic injustice, that's fine. But if we're not here, we can't spend the money. If my babies don't grow up, if my seeds don't mature and come to harvest, economic justice means nothing. Reparations is retraining the police. I want to meet all them mamas for all them policemen who killed my babies. I'm sorry to be so passionate, but not. Because each and every one of them could have been in my house. I've had so many youth in my home because I have 6 boys. And my motto and my policy and my philosophy is bring them home. I got an extra refrigerator in the garage. I got tools. I got weight sets. I got everything. Go ahead. You got my question. So what's my question? What we going to do about the Stephon Clark bill, and more specifically, why isn't there a line item in the budget for training of the police here in Sacramento? That's my real question. And what will you do about it? Because the city manager has all the power. And you're right, police and fire get all the money, but there's no money in their budget for training. We're still at risk. I'm sorry, my people, but I had to get that one out because I'm still healing. I cry every day. I pray every day because our babies have to go out and we can't be with them. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, trauma is real. And I appreciate your willingness to share with all of us what you're feeling and why. And you are absolutely right that, we do things and sometimes they don't go far enough. I will say, within the city of Sacramento, I'm really frustrated right now because the department won't even meet with the police review commission, right? And it's and so there are some things here where I think that there's a level of professionalism that our city has to bring to the table when we're engaging with communities. But also we need to be following national standards for community safety. And one of those is actually getting to know your community. And making sure that people know what's going on in your community and who you are, right? Because how can you provide safety when you don't know what the normal comings and goings of the community are? And then the second, really important thing is, making sure that when things happen, that we investigate and we learn from it and we do something different. And the challenge there has been that, I don't know how many of you watched the budget, hearing just very recently, but when asked, we have an Office of Public Safety Accountability, who is run by Dr. Letitia Watson, who is a national expert and a former police chief and a Black woman. And she said, we are violating the Fourth Amendment frequently, and that has been ignored by the city. She has come up with recommendations and they have been ignored. And she said, we cannot do the investigations we need if the police don't have these internal affairs positions. And our police chief said, no, we don't want those positions.
Exactly.
And so we have to have a conversation about, is the tail wagging the dog or is the dog wagging the tail? And the truth of the matter is the city manager is an employee of the mayor and council. So if the mayor and council give direction to the city manager has to do their job or have to deal with the consequences of being an employee who has defied your supervisor. Right? And that's what happens when you actually have performance goals and outcomes, and we're really clear about where we're going. And I think that's the power. We sometimes talk about strong mayor, which I consider an executive mayor, versus, a collaborative mayor. The value of it is that we get to set the agenda and say what we need to see happen. And so one of the things we need to talk about is what exactly is in this police budget? What are the things that we need from the department? What does public safety look like writ large? Not just how do we respond after emergencies? Because I can guarantee you one thing, there's not a single person in this room who woke up this morning hoping to call 911. Right. And that's the case in most communities. When you call 911, you've had a medical emergency or a safety emergency, but either way, it's not your idea of a good day. So what we're trying to talk about when we talk about public safety is how do you move through your community without harm? And that's not just who responds after you've been harmed. It's also what do we invest in to make sure you're not harmed in the first place? And so it's twofold. We have to be able to strengthen those responders and make sure the right responders are doing the right thing. We have an unfunded, basically, Department of Community Response that could be doing more of this work to be able to help keep us safe. That's first things. And then second, and that's our alternative response, because not everything needs an officer to respond, right? There are other problems. 31%, according to the New York Times article from a few years ago, of the calls that police respond to are not crimes and are not actually police business. Why are they the ones responding? Because they're who we fund to be available to do that. So we need to shift that. But then we also need to have the conversation about what are the other things we invest in that keep our community safe. And that has to be part of our public safety strategy. It can't just be, let's respond after bad things happen, because that doesn't stop bad things from happening, and it leaves many people in our community feeling traumatized as you are. So that's my commitment as a public health professional, is to look at and try to push our city towards investments in public safety, not just emergency response.
Thank you.
You asked about the question of that bill, 392. And if you open up the bill right now, you'll see two names, Weber and McCarty, who's my bill. And I put Weber on the front because she had way more muscle than I did, Dr. Shirley Weber. You know her. Yes. And that was before the summer of George Floyd. And this was hard. And the bill was dead. And we had to go for scraps on the ground. But we did change the standard from the reasonable standard, like what would a reasonable officer do? Well, what's reasonable mean? To only when necessary. So we did change that legal standard. So that has the opportunity to bring about more accountability when officers do cross the line. You know, I felt terrible talking to the Clark family, just like the Mann family up in El Paso Heights, which frankly was way worse in my opinion. The facts of taking an innocent life that was not necessary. So it's not about bringing justice for the future harms, but preventing it in the first place. And there have been across California fewer officer-involved shootings, but there's still way too many. And you're right that there is not enough, there's not a line item in the state budget. It's up to each police department. That's one of the reasons why I'm pushing this policy for sunshining how much we pay in settlements. And as she said earlier on page whatever, the city budget actually says there, an issue we must consider is how much we got to pay out in the future. Because all these academics say, if the public really knows how much they're paying, not just rooms that look like this, but rooms that look like the Pocket, Man Park, and East Sac, be like, what? We're paying that much for this knucklehead behavior? You know, let's face it, most officers do not cross the line. I'm a believer when they do, there needs to be accountability. Yeah, that's why I wrote the other law that gives the Attorney General the power to investigate, because the DA investigating is like, you know, policing themselves. They know each other by name. So if you don't want the umpires doing balls and strikes, who's the pitcher's uncle? You wanted somebody else, right? So I'm saying this because I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do without telling you who I am. So I've leaned on this issue, the top 5 of people in doing the hard fights for 10 years on this. So that tells you, like, I do know about these issues and I'm committed to it. So whether or not we have a line item in the city budget, I'll make sure that when we have the opportunities to talk to our police department, to bring up when we have agendas on the city council, we make it a priority. We make it a priority. We do have this police citizen commission that has kind of an adversarial relationship. I asked my folks, why are they even there? They're not getting valued. So I think that we need to focus on that piece of it as well. But as mayor, I'm committed to the issue. And going back to, you know, this whole issue of policing and, you know, young people in the first place, you know, we have major issues. It's our youth, it's too much violence for young people, it's policing. And so we have a lot to unpack, and it's a priority that I'm going to be working with the community, with all of us, to focus on the solutions. And being a community mayor, like I've been a community council member, a community assembly member for 20 years, leaning in. Thank you.
Here's our second question from our public. Oh, please keep it to one question though, because we have one more system over there. I'm trying to get it in before our 7 o'clock, respectful of our speaker's time.
Okay, I'm gonna try. My name is Miss Chocolate. I came from Sacramento, but I'm a community mom. I was a community mom here, but now I live in Monterey County. But I still do business out here. My question, I have 2 questions, I'm sorry, I have to address. The one when you said about the homeless population. Well, there's 3 things that go on with the homeless population. You have mental health issue, and you also have substance abuse. So if you don't combat all 3, you're not gonna help the situation. So how are you gonna address that? Then 2, I have 5 boys and 1 girl, 2 sets of twins. And my sons were, when I seen them going down the wrong path, I was asking for help. I was saying, I need help. I see something going on. The police were saying, well, Ms. Belton, we can't help you because they haven't done a crime. There's no programs. They done took all the programs for these kids before they get in trouble. Now my son has gotten in trouble and he's in jail now. Now they can help him. That's backwards to me. And then my 3rd, repair. Reparations mean repair, right? If everyone doesn't get this, we're gonna have a problem because you have people that don't have anything. And so how is this going to be allocated? Our young people are killing each other over nonsense because they don't have anything. So we have to address that. Our young people are dying every day on senseless things. And I digress.
No, you don't digress. You raised the issue, man, ask the question. So back to the homeless issue and overrepresented Black population. You're right. The homelessness is multifaceted. Addiction, mental health, poverty, all those things combined. What I'm trying to make the point with your flag as far as no vote, no reparations, is in my view, we're only gonna go forward in pushing significant reparations policy with money behind it when you convince the greater population of lawmakers that come from districts that have 5% Black population, you know, that they're not hearing from Black constituents, 95% of the constituents are not Black. And they need to be like, you know what, reparations policy is about, you're right, acknowledging, repairing, right? But also solving the underlying problems. So we need to make the case, but by making these investments, we'd have fewer Black kids in the juvenile justice system, fewer, Black citizens on the skid rows across California, including ours right here, in the River District. So that's my point overall. This is a chess game. This isn't checkers right here. So in order for this reparations issue to go forward, and this hour is about that. And if one thing I want you to leave here tonight, besides the fact that I'm okay there, is that this is a quest. It's going to take time, and I know people are frustrated, and there's questions. When does the money? Who gets it? Frankly, there's other question we haven't talked about yet. Is it descendants of slavery or African Americans? That's a bigger question we hear all throughout this whole process, right? But have this multi-year campaign to talk about the issue, and it's not easy. But we have things that we can, with great examples earlier you talked about. We've done this in our country before. After the internment of the Japanese, we went through this. Yeah, and after our Jewish population, what happened in Israel 100 years ago. We've been through this already. So we have something we can talk about. But we're gonna need to focus on a campaign. Like, how do we go to our churches, our workplaces, and talk about these issues? That's what us at the Black Caucus are talking about. Not this year's bills, which are okay. Like you said, they're okay. It's a start. But how do we grow this movement? Right? Yeah. 400 plus years. We're in year one right now of focusing on the answer. So again, that's the one thing that I want us to continue, is how communities like us can continue working on this issue.
Ms. Chocolate, thank you for your questions, and I really appreciated how they all connected to one another. Because what I heard you ask is, how are we going to invest in prevention?
Right.
That's what I heard. And I sometimes get really frustrated because I feel like we focus on this sort of like adversarial relationship between the city and the county. The county has some of the money for the services, but the city has a responsibility for prevention in many instances. And so that's what I want us to really be thinking about and focusing on is, to your point, right? Why is it that you have to wait until you're in trouble to be able to have a whole suite of services open up? That's why, I think the youth fund that we put in place in 2022 was important. It's a portion of the budget that we voted for in 2022 to make sure that we did have some money set aside for youth programming, so that even when the budget went up and down, the kids didn't get cut because they don't vote. And so it's really easy to cut their money because there's nobody to come and yell at you and to make it so that you can't get reelected. And so we constantly saw that kids were getting cut. And so those are the types of programs that should be available, so we don't have to wait until you're in trouble. And that honestly was one of the beautiful things about that violence prevention and intervention network of folks. It was everything from the Black Child Legacy to Advanced Peace, right? Advanced Peace is working with known active shooters to make sure no more shootings happen. And then it was everything else in that suite, Brother to Brother, Heal in the Hood, Black Child Legacy, right? Mutual assistance, like all of these folks who were able to get in. Some of it is more prevention. It's just, you have kids and we want to make sure your kids have things to do. Because we know 3 to 5 p.m., if your kids have nothing to do, they are likely to get in trouble.
Exactly.
Right? So those are the things that we want to invest in. And that's where I think a lot of our dollars should be focused, because it allows for kids like your kids to have something to do, an outlet to be able to redirect them, so we don't have to wait until something bad happens. Too many of our systems, this is not just a city problem, this is an American culture problem, is that too many of our systems are waiting for something to go wrong to then throw the Cadillac of services at you. And we're saying, why do we have to wait for something to go wrong? Why can't we do something in advance? To your point about homelessness, the same thing is true, right? We're spending a lot of time thinking about how to get people off the streets, and we should. And also, there are people who live every day with the fear that they're going to join them. And that has everything to do with poverty. So I like to liken it to this. We are playing a game of musical chairs, right? And we know how musical chairs goes. There's 10 people circling around, but there's only 9 chairs. And when the music stops, somebody doesn't have a chair. So the first problem is that we have absolutely not built enough housing over the last 30 to 50 years in Sacramento. And so we don't have enough chairs. But then if you have somebody who's playing musical chairs, who's using a cane or on crutches, they are the most likely not to get that chair, right? Because they have mobility issues. So what our homelessness crisis has illuminated for us is that when you have a chronic condition, 57% of our unhoused folks have a chronic condition. When you have mental health or substance use issues, you are more likely, if you also happen to be poor, to not get a chair when the music stops. But the truth is also that the majority of people with substance use issues and with mental health issues are securely housed. So the issue is not that those things are causing homelessness, they are making you more vulnerable to experiencing homelessness. And then once you're there, there's nothing to help and stop it, right? And so part of what we need to do is think about where we already have money. We have CalAIM, which does wraparound services and down payments for housing and all of those things through Medi-Cal. The challenge is people aren't document ready, and we're not getting them into the system to get them that support. And then we do things like mail them eligibility letters. They don't live anywhere, so they get the letter and then the housing is gone, right? We set up systems that are frankly poorly designed and not designed to be able to meet people where they are.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges we're up against. The other one is that we don't work together well.
Right.
We don't honor kindergarten rules. The number of conversations I've had over the last year while running for mayor, when I've asked, well, the developers, have you talked to the unions? Well, no, we just know that they. We're not having a conversation first before we start Capulets and Montagues. Like we can fight for 7 generations forward before we start with the conversation. So the conversation has to be, what are we doing this year and how can everyone help? Because the business community is out here spending money on their own private security. They're running not particularly helpful measures to be able to make homelessness illegal. Why don't we spend those dollars actually getting the 300 most seriously challenged folks that we see outside that we know by name, downtown James Brown, and this one, that one. Why don't we actually focus on getting them the support they need, because they're costing us millions of dollars per year cycling through our jails and our emergency departments. So we're paying the money anyway, why not spend it smartly? And that's what CalAIM is designed for, but we have to be willing to sit down at the table and say, can you do this part? Can you do this part? Can you do this part? And I am absolutely convinced that it's not just money that is a problem. It's actually, are we working together and partnering together and designing things that actually work for people and actually including the people who are impacted as part of that conversation. And so that's my commitment more than anything to you. I always tell people the 2 things I want to do next year as your next mayor are one is we need to change the way we make decisions.
Right.
We need to make sure that more people know what we're doing. Don't post an agenda 5 days before the meeting. Let's actually do what they do at the State House and let people know what we're planning to do so they have time to talk to each other and offer amendments and be a part of things and tell us why they support it and also tell us how they're going to help us.
Right.
Step 2 is we need to set some clear and consistent goals. We should all be able to know by the end of the year what we hoped to achieve so we can know how close we got to it. I have said regularly that we have 1,500 kids or families with kids who are experiencing homelessness, and by the end of my first term, I want that number to be 0. And several people, particularly the political establishment, say you never commit to goals like that because then you disappoint people. And I say no, because what happens if we house 1,200? That's better than 0. And that means that now we all know how close we are to our goal and we can rally to get to the finish line. So it's not about just not like being unwilling to do something bold. It's about saying what we want to do so other people can get excited and help you. This would be a terrible job to vie for if I had to do it alone. But I have 500,000 people in the city of Sacramento that are at our disposal to be able to help out in any way. People who have lived experience and professional experience. This is what we're building towards. So your question is about how do we redefine systems? We start by realizing that all of this stuff is made up. All of it. Money, the economy, everything. It's all made up. Every law that we try to finagle around, we have constitutional scholars that try to interpret how a bunch of people just like us, what they were intending when they wrote down a law. We can make things up and we can change things. And I don't want us to forget that, no matter how hard it seems, is that we can find solutions. And so I want us to hold that same energy as we approach the city, that it does not have to be like this. And I think we have all the tools we need to be able to invest in prevention. We just have to have the will and the willingness to participate. And that's what I'm inviting people into. Let's do this differently because we can.
Dr. Cofer has something to do, and we're respectful of your time. Assemblyman McCarty, did you want to give any final words and then let her give her final words, and then we can let you guys scoot on off if you want, but I want to be respectful of that, and I need a photo right, and we gotta, I know what's going on with my sister, she got to get on going, so we're gonna respect that.
Yeah, we're good. We're
Okay,
good. Thank you
good.
for inviting us here tonight, and this is an ongoing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And at that moment, we're going to play a video that Junior Cat has for us all, and then we'll be going on to Sister Truth Bay, and then back to Brother Chris.
Not a video. I'd like to bring you one of us, the fluent strategic planners representing the U.S. and Washington, D.C. Put your hands together for Ms. Melanie Powers.
Good evening, family, sister, brother, stakeholder, community leader, community builder, friend of our community. I'm so honored to be here tonight with each and every one of you. But tonight, I'm here to talk to you about a woman that I get excited about. Her name is Miss Dee Dee Simon. This lady was introduced to me because I was attending a Juneteenth event in the early 90s in San Francisco. That was not a very friendly crowd.
Well,
But Miss Simon came on board. She was professional,
yes.
personable, and engaging as she performed. She never looked to the north or the south. She knew that she was going to land somewhere among those heavenly bodies when she got through releasing that range of voice that she had that touches the stars. She gets you excited because she personificates soul. She gives us soulfulness as she delivers R&B in a way that we haven't had in quite a few decades, if I might be so proudest to say. Actually, I'm not proud about that. But I have to say that Dee Dee, we get to share her with the community of Oakland. She does a lot of business here, and I'm so proud of this woman because she's been in the industry for over 30 years. She has sung at daycares, colleges, universities. She has served with some famous people, backup people. So many opportunities have been there for her, but something has always kept it from her. But you know what? That woman has a smile that lights up the world, and she keeps pushing. What I know about her is that she has worked for 19 years at San Quentin State Prison as a registered nurse. Now, what other purpose could be more important to be woman who cares about them. Dee Dee's voice is a gift to the world.
Yes, it is.
She won Showtime at the Apollo. Do you guys know that is the hardest to win talent show in the world? And she won it in January. That's right. But guess what? This lady got 4 yeses at America's Got Talent just a few weeks ago. So y'all, when you hear Dee Dee Simon gets another 4 yeses, please vote for her. But I want to let you guys know about a surprise I've been working on for Dee Dee. I've been in communication with Congresswoman Doris Matsui's office because I feel that for the work she's done and all the healing that her voice has done in the state of California and all over this country, that she should receive congressional recognition.
Well,
They're very much in favor of it. There's only one thing that stopped it. My office manager there got COVID and she couldn't produce my award. So they have promised to get me an award and they will personally come and give it to her at an event when she comes back to Sacramento. And so for that, I'm very proud to say, let me, without further ado, introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to my R&B superstar with a whole lot of soul infused, Miss Dee Dee Simon.
My name is Dee Dee Simon.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Powell and Drummer Cat, and thank you, Sacramento, for having me. But my son was born in Sacramento, okay, 19 years ago, and we lived in Sacramento. He goes to Sac State out here. When I had my son, there was no rooms available, so I got the master suite. And I was a social worker at that time, so I knew my rights. I knew that one of those rooms was gonna become available because I was in that master suite. And when it did, I said, no, this is our residency right now, and we have to stay here. So my son was born in a suite.
there you go.
And I tell him that. But I also instill in him to work hard, to be humble, to be respectful of his elders. And I can say that he has done that. He loves Sacramento, even though I try to get him to come to Oakland. But when he gets to Oakland, I'm like, go back to Sacramento. Oakland's off the hook. We have a deputy mayor. I didn't even know we had a deputy mayor here, but they said we do. But I'm grateful I have my mother here. That's very important. That's my roots. She came here from Mississippi and she was picking cotton. And yes, she was a sharecropper. So when you guys talk about reparations, that means something to me.
That's right.
That really does mean something to me because she was out there. And I'm not saying nobody else's family was out there, but I'm still here with my mother and we talk about it. So I'm just grateful just to be honored by you guys. I really am, because this was a long time. I'm not a Me Tooer. I tell people I'm not in the Me Too movement. That's not me, even though I don't have nothing against it. I was raised in a house where I was told to speak up. Anybody look at you, touch you, you say something, or I'm gonna get you. Ain't nobody gonna do nothing to your mama. And I thought my mama was the baddest thing in the world. So in our house, we were loud. The whole house was loud. I got in trouble for being too loud singing, but I was loud. So I'm not a Me Tooer. And that's why my career has been, I am proud of my career where it is, because I didn't have to do anything to get to the next level. It took long, maybe God wanted it that way, and I'm okay with that.
Amen.
But I am not a Me Tooer. And I encourage women to speak up, don't hide. There's no reason for you to hide. Can't nobody whoop your mama or your daddy. Can't nobody do nothing to them because they strong. But I know mine is. So I'm just grateful to be amongst you guys, because I know what we're waiting on. And when the inmates come and talk to me, I say, we get our reparations. They say, I heard that, Simon, for real. I said, I'm telling you, you're getting reparations, so you better get ready for it. He said, "Nuh-uh." I said, I'm telling you, I was there when Tukey was killed in the, on death row. I saw Jamie Foxx, Snoop Dogg, all them walking. I've been there since 2005. So I seen it all. I worked on death row for 9 years, and I've seen the good, the bad, and now we're at rehabilitation. And I'm proud to be working at San Quentin to see the change. So when I sit here amongst you guys, I just want to do this. How can I say thanks for the things he has done for me? Things so undeserved, yet you gave to prove your love for me. The voices of a million angels cannot express my gratitude. All that I am and ever hope to be, I owe it all to thee. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. To God be the glory for the things he has done with his love. He has raised me with his power. He has saved me. Yes, he has. To God be the glory for the things he has done. You helping me, Mommy?
So yes, thank you, Dee Dee. We really appreciate you. She came all the way from LA to bless us. This is such an amazing blessing, even to have her here. And we love you. We're gonna support you all the way. So I'm gonna pass it to Dr. Trudy Bell. She's been working on the federal level. We're fighting out there for reparations. So I'm gonna pass that to Dr. Trudy Bell to educate us a little bit where we are.
How to the people. Miss Dee Dee, my God. How can you follow such an angelic voice? So my name is Dr. Truth Bay. I'm actually a descendant of slaves from the good ship Desire. My family came here on the good ship Desire in 1636, and that's what you see up here. William Pierce brought back some tobacco, cotton, cocoa, and what they call Hispaniola at the time, and also decided to bring 11 Negroes. So that is my family history. So as a native Los Angelino, in 2009, I lost my son Kingston to gun violence in New York. I thought it would be safer there in New York, but gun violence happens anywhere. And ever since then, I had to figure out what was the source of the problem, because I was born and raised in the hood, originally from Watts, and I didn't know anything different other than hood life. And so why was it like that is what started my journey in politics, let's say politics. So we had 2 mayoral candidates, and what a leader does, they wait their turn. They allow others to go forth. But I'm not new to this, I'm true to this.
All right.
So I'm the Minister of Justice for the Black Panther Party, and this is a very serious goal. So I want to tell you on a federal level why the Tulsa, Oklahoma case was tossed out with prejudice. It was filed correctly, but why was it tossed out? Because the Supreme Court justice, the 9 members, were upholding the roots of their ancestors, which were slave masters. All of them Caucasian. So we have no problem with that, but when we, because of the color of our skin, are denied rights or considered property since 1776, how do you expect us to uphold a bill that considered us property instead of humans? So how do we file for reparations in the court system? And yes, it has to be filed in the court system. It's not something that's going to be freely given. One of the things that the judges stated is that they're judges. They do not want to reopen or open a reparations case. That is why Viola Fletcher, who's 110, Bennington, who was 109, and God rest his soul, Hugh Ellis Sr., who died, unfortunately, waiting for recompense concerning this. Oklahoma is a testament as to how we need to file for reparations. Reparations is a biblical thing. Genesis 15, verse 13, God made a promise to Abraham and told him, you will live a long age, but your ancestors will be slaves in a strange land for 400 years. This was a biblical statement. And so it was. 1619 to 2019 was those 400 years. And so what happened in 2020? Do we remember? COVID, the Great Reset. Because God loves us so much that he wants us to get back what was stolen from us. It's about claiming what's there. It's not about going through the process. Dr. Flo Cofer stated already. A lot of these laws are made up because we're not in these political spaces. So they're going to tap dance around you and give you the okie doke and say, this is what it is. Give you a whole bunch of jargon. That means absolutely nothing. You claim who you are because God made you who you are from birth. He gave us land. He gave us property. He gave us destiny. He gave us a mission. We're going to get back to that.
That's right.
So this is what I wanted to focus on. Numbers. The numbers game. So Sacramento County has a budget of $8.6 billion. Here we go. State of California has $400 billion, but we're going to just give them $100 billion credit and say $300 billion. So what we're asking is 1%. We're asking 1%. That's the least they can do.
Thank you.
For all of their turmoil and trial and tribulations and the guns they dropped in our neighborhoods and the fentanyl they dropped in our neighborhoods, that's the least they can do is 1%. So we're going to ask on July 12th, which is the next county board of supervisors. How many of us know the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors? Raise your hand. I want to tell you, these 5 people run $8.6 billion. Yeah? So we got to tell them what to do with this. So we're asking 1% of 8.6, which is $86 million. It's not a lot to them, but it can do a lot of good for our youth in the community. How many technology centers can we build with $86 million with all these empty properties sitting here collecting dust? How much housing, affordable housing that we can build amongst ourselves with $86 million? Yeah? Next is the Sacramento City budget, which is $1.6 billion. Significantly less, but still enough. 1% is $16 million. So the grand total that we'll be asking for is $3,102,000,000. This is just a symbolic but definite numbers. You gotta know the data. You gotta know the name of your oppressor. It's not he, them, they. They got a name. They know your name. They know your children's name. They know who's been in jail. They know what bail or no bail they're gonna give your child based on their family history. So you better know the oppressor's name. And no offense, we need to be considered human. And we're not. That's why slavery is still upon us. They did a good thing on June 27th, yes. They released the words involuntary servitude and removed the word slavery from the Constitution, but it has to be fulfilled by you, voting, because that's what's gonna be on the bill. Any politician that doesn't focus on Reparative justice, you do a drive-by on that and say, see you later. But when we're gonna start, know the numbers. So Phil Sterner, District 1. Patrick Kennedy, District 2. You have Rich Desmond, District 3. Sue Frost, the only woman, District 4. And last but not least, District 5, Pat Humey. Any coincidence? Do you see up there reflections of you? This is the county, right? So Sacramento City can take a breath for a reason. Flo for mayor. I'm gonna keep it real, Dr. Flo for mayor. But the county has been asleep because we haven't woken them up. They're the one that's over probation. You see Sacramento Juvenile Detention Center, where our babies don't have a chance, where they deny the resources to them. Yeah? When they see that there's positive results, oh no, denied access. Make it make sense. So we're gonna ask these 5 a few questions on that day. So July 12th, even if you have a broken leg, tape it up and show up. 9 a.m. 700 Avenue H. 700 Avenue H, Suite 2450. If you want more information, you can call or text reparations to 323-884-8583. Text reparations to 323-884-8583. Chris already mentioned some of the bills, as he mentioned, ACA 8 and AB 628. One thing that I want us to remember that we are in a progressive state. We are lucky because California is leading the charge when it comes to legislation nationwide. We have to take credit for that. Senator Bradford, marvelous job, but we've got to take it another step further. We've got to be in these political spaces. You cannot say, I don't know politics, because that's a death sentence to your children and your children's children. Politics determine how you are, how we live, and we have to know them by numbers, right? So what's the magic number?
July 12th, 9 a.m.
July 12th. What's the amount? $3,102,000,000 right? 1% from Sacramento County, $8.6 billion budget, $86 million. 1% of $1.6 billion Sacramento City budget is $16 million. State of California, $300 billion budget is $3 billion. That is the starting price. Where is it gonna go? It's gonna go into building the technology centers for our youth, building housing for our youth. So nonprofits like Hooked on Fishing, Not on Violence. Real Talk, where I don't know where DJ Tim went, but we got Brother Marvell. We got Mark the Disciple. These gentlemen have been paving the way, just like many other nonprofits, doing the social work. Thank you, sir. There's a future president right there. And we need to honor these nonprofits who's doing the groundwork. Just the other day, on Facebook, some teens were threatened on shooting each other on the spot. Who did they call? DJ Tim one gone. To the state capitol, where you got many youths that are gathering. The heat is combining with the anger. Their brains are so advanced when they look at them, they see these old ass buildings. And they see liquor stores and dispensaries and churches and nothing for them to create 3D animation, podcasting, music, simple stuff, but we want to preach to them all day. We want to tell you how untitled you are, but you're not giving them the tools to create. Come on, we can't be hypocritical, family. Let's build it and they will come. And I guarantee you the violence in the street, they're gonna start making too much money online for them to be out in the streets. They're not gonna have beef anymore. They're gonna start collaborating and creating a new way of technology. So this is who we are. We are scattered. Each of us, great in our own right, mission accomplished or not. Yet we're here, there, everywhere. And this is not power. This is not even Black power. This is not power. Scatterness is not power.
That's right.
So what we must be, family, We must be intricate and tied together like a spider web. Organized. And as tattered as torn as it may be, the concept is the same. This is power. Each of us connected,
Aligned.
one way or the other. You may not agree, but nonetheless, you are connected.
We're all aligned.
And the little dots are our little youngs, the future that's watching us. Yeah. So let's start wondering how we can connect the dots. So when they ask you who you are, you say, I'm a dot. So let's connect it. Very simple concept. But we must do it. So HR 194, last but not least, HR 194 is the bill that was introduced into Congress in July 2008 by Stephen Cohen. HR 194 tells us straight up, through data, exactly the harms and what slavery was. I'm going to read just the first 3 sentences of HR 194, but please study it, because this is the reparations blueprint that's going to help with the lawsuit moving forward. And yes, reparations has to go through the courts no matter what. Because this is a harm that has to be accounted for in real time. And this is what we have to do. So HR 194, let me pull this up right quick, and then I appreciate your time and your listening ear. So it says, whereas millions of Africans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States and the 13th American colonies from 1619 to 1865. It gives you a time frame. Reparative justice is lineage-based, based on the people who suffered through this time frame. Whereas slavery in America resembled no other form of involuntary servitude known in history, as Africans were captured and sold at auction like inanimate objects or animals. So if the federal government recognizes what they did to us, that means there's a price tag behind it. That's what we're enforcing, family, is that price tag.
Amen.
Lastly, whereas Africans forced into slavery were brutalized, humiliated, dehumanized, and subjugated to the indignity of being stripped of their names and heritage. And I can go on, but this is a beautiful apology letter, at least 3 pages long. That is a federal document since 2008. You can't undo federal documents. So if this is on a federal level that tells you straight up what we did to you during this period of time, so they need to cut the check.
Amen.
Cut the check. Ain't that right, Chris? Give me that hat. Cut the check. So with that being said, family, let's work together to change the scope of what is being put in our brains. Turn off the entertainment for a moment, because we cannot afford not to get on this. We're the only culture, people that were stripped of everything. That's why they keep doing drive-bys on us. We're not black on paper. Black is a color. We gotta be a nation. But I can't get to that point if we're not doing the ABCs of what it is I need to know, right? So the magic number, just for California, 3,102 million. So July 12th, at the County Board of Supervisors, I expect to see everyone, more than your children there, than anything. Fill up those spaces. County Board of Supervisors meeting, they're usually about 4, 5, 6 hours. Yeah? Let's start training ourselves to learn how to follow motions, right? To put on the agendas. We want to see a youth council of our kids in suits rather than guns and shorts. Let's start making the change, and July 12th will be that change. So with that being said, I want to say power to the people. Power to all the people.
Let's give this anointing sister another round of And if you want to get more information, we can also go to federalhealth.gov. federalhealth.org or the federalhealth.com?
Yeah, Federal Health Coalition.org, but you can-
Federal, will the information be on there?
Yes.
And you can follow on, Federal Health
Coalition.
Coalition.com, okay? And check Truth Bay out and all that knowledge and sign up. Make a donation. You know, we're not begging, but the more we are fueled and funded, the more we can spread and assimilate the information, all right? So at this time, I had a question over there. She just stepped out. And oh, there you are. You moved over. And then I had another question from a young lady. Wait, you're gonna be third, but it was one more. She was sitting over there in the back, but she left. So we'll go, the lady in blue, you with the hat, and then you, sister. And Chris, where did Chris go? It's time for Q&A time. Okay. Come on back up, brother. It's your question and answer time. So I will go to the first lady.
I'm ready.
All right, would you like to stand and ask your question, my dear? And you can say your name and all that. Thank you for being here.
Well, good evening, rather, to everyone. My name is Effie Kent. I'm also a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I'm an association president here in District 8.
We want to get you on camera. You awesome.
I am an association president here in District 8 and moving forward pertaining to our restoration. And the restoration that I have in mind and have been placed in the vision is through by agriculture. Because we all know that agriculture is the cradle of all civilization. So my purpose and the goal when I came into District 8, knowing that it was plenty land here, and we all know that there's plenty land in the United States, don't we? And we know that we have had land, and the land have been taken away from our ancestors. And the reparation promise, as my sister just read, was made. And from one generation to the other, we have not cashed in on the check. I heard the young lady that was singing, she says, my mother is from Mississippi. So she understands what a sharecropper is. My grandparents, and I began my young life on a farm in Memphis, Tennessee. So my grandfather was a sharecropper. And when it comes to restoration, it's time now for us to focus in and get in order, get the wisdom and the knowledge, because without the wisdom of the politics and what's going on, we're not going to get there. But now is the opportunity is being put before us. We're going to follow suit on that. I want to say in reference to the reparation, it's not even made known a lot to us. The reason why I'm saying that is because there was a reparation that went out pertaining to discrimination for all. But was we included? No, I thought we was. I found out through by the grace of God. I made it my business to follow suit to see if I was going to get my application in. I went looking for the place. Do you know that was the most difficult place to find in Rancho Cordova? And when I got there, I'm looking to see some of us. It wasn't even set up to represent us. So I go in, we go in, and we talking to the ones that's doing the application. And they tried to kind of discourage me. I said, you can't discourage me because I was born into this. My people were sharecroppers. I was born into this. And based upon what we have did even here in District 8, we are into agriculture. It's less known today that as a culture, as African Americans, we have the first, praise God and hallelujah. I love when you said that and that. We have the first urban farm here that have a tracking number, and we're recognized as an urban farm through by the Food and Agriculture of California Department, meaning that we can go in as a farm as certified growers pertaining to agriculture itself, and we grow organically, fruits, vegetables, plants, and trees. Why did I pursue that? Because I wanted all our wonderful growers that was growing gardens to become certified growers, so you would have an opportunity to go into these farmer markets, just like you see everybody else going in, and you don't see us. Go into these farmer markets and sell this organic vegetables, fruits, and trees that you are growing for your family. Now you have the opportunity, your children have the opportunity, your youth in the community have the opportunity, and now just being an urban grower, you are a farmer. So that means that the agriculture department, USDA, has to give you the support that you need, and if not, they really put themselves in jeopardy. So that has been my mission, and I thank God that it has been accomplished as an organization. We are a 501c3 as a farm. We are the Meadowview Urban Farmers here in Meadowview, because District 8 is the largest district, and it is definitely a food desert. And I am so proud of everything that's going on here. Proud of you, Zion, for just hosting this. Proud of everyone that is here, because we're taking this serious, and we mean business. And I have great passion for the homeless and everything that goes along with being without a home. But I'm here to tell you, if we don't address this issue, there will be more homeless among our people because of the unsafety. Right now, look at the fireworks. Look at the fires. You could become homeless if when the fireworks go off. And you see how close they building the homes, right?
Now, you know I'm the moderator though, so we need you to ask your question.
So my question is, please, I apologize. So my question is, in reference to this, I want to ask you the question in reference to just more involvement in how our organization really want to get more involved with this, so we can get our youth more involved.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, to that question, I do want to stand up because it's better for all of us. So, first of all, Elder, thank you. Okay, thank you. Food and land must be a part of what the city does, and of course what the state does too. Has to be a part of it. Now, there's one bill, as we talked about earlier, there's one bill right now moving at the state level to start to return land and property to people who had their property taken. But that is probably just a first step. We got to do way more. So I think part of what I would like to see included in the next policies and the next bills that we fight for is putting money into programs like yours. Put money into programs like the one that you are doing in Meadowview to make sure that people are able to, and our people specifically are able to grow our own food, to build the nutrition and the health of our own people. So programs like yours, and then I think there's another piece that you talked about also, which is the young folks. And let me just say this too. So right now we are at what you could think of as the beginning of this work. Okay? I know it doesn't feel like the beginning because we've been here a long time. It's long overdue. But for our work and for this generation of reparations, we are at the beginning. Part of what I would like to do, and I would like to work with you on, is taking your idea directly to the people who have the decision-making power to make it happen.
All right.
And this is actually where we are right now. Right now, we have the opportunity to help influence what actually becomes the reparations. So one of the principles that people who do reparations in other countries understand is that the people who are the harmed and the people who it's for help design what the actual reparations are. And so what I would like to work with you on, and really everyone else in this room who has an idea for what should be in the reparations, let's connect before we leave. Because right now you have the power, you have the opportunity to help influence what is in the reparations plan and movement, not just this year, but next year and the following year and the year after that too, and the several years that come after that. Also, we're gonna be working on this probably for the next, every year for the next several years at minimum. We're not gonna wait until we're, after the years to do stuff. We're gonna do stuff every year. We're gonna take action every year, but we need people like you to help tell us what should be in the plan. How much money do y'all need? What, where, specifically, okay? And before everyone leaves here, let's do this while we're here right now. So if you can take out your phone, okay? For those who have their phone, all right? Let's take some action right now together, okay? There is a challenge, and I want to talk about this straight up. So not enough people know about what's going on, and not enough people are involved right now. So let's help fix some of that right now. Okay, so folks got their phones out. If you're not able to do it now, don't worry, I'll come around and check with you afterwards. I want you to go to however you go to the internet, whatever you use, if you use Google Chrome or whatever it is, I'm gonna give you a website. I want you to go to this website. I want you to sign up for regular information about reparations that we put out. Every month, at least once or twice a month, we send out a newsletter about what's going on. Every month, about once or twice a month, we send out text messages about what's going on. You need to know what's going on. The more you know, the more you can help influence what's going on. So the website is www.cjec-official.org. www.cjec-official.org. As soon as you go to the website, within a few seconds, there's going to be a screen that pops up and says, hey, do you want to sign up for regular text messages about reparations? Say yes, put your information in there. Also, while you're on the website, browse around. We have an education page on the website that gives you a timeline of where we started in the reparations movement and where we are now. We have other information about what the state task force did. We have other information about all of the questions that we get and that we have answers for. www.cjec-official.org. Sign up for regular text message updates. Sign up for our email newsletter also. That is the first step to being able to influence what's going on. You have to know what's going on first. But I want to say this again. Right now, each and every single one of us has an opportunity to help influence what is in the next round of reparations bills. As I mentioned, there was 20 that was introduced this year to start. First time we've ever had anybody even try to do reparations bills at the state level. But trying is not enough. We actually have to do something. And part of what we do will be decided not just by the people who we saw in the chairs earlier, Kevin McCarty, Dr. Cofer, not just by the people who work at the state capitol, not just by the governor's office, but really it's you. You know exactly what you need more than anybody in that building or any of those buildings. You had a question over there, but it's www.cjec-official. Now there's a page, if you go to the website, there's a page called Get Involved. If you go to that Get Involved page, you can add your email, add your cell, and that's the first step to get connected.
And that's how we'll keep you informed. And please send it to 10 friends and ask them to send it to 10 friends, because we are powerful when we move like that. So I do believe, you had a question, and then there was the ma'am, she came back, and then we'll go to Marvell. Is that okay with you? 3 more questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, my name is. My name is Sunny with Princess Book Club. True. And I have a question. The task force. It sounds like to me, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the reparations money would go to the task force and then us as individuals would have to apply for those monies?
We'll explain. That's an excellent question.
Great question. So I'm gonna work through this simply because it's a little bit complicated, but let's make it simple. Let's make it plain for the family. So the state task force finished their work last year. Technically, the state task force is already done. So none of the money that we talked about today goes to the task force. The task force finished their work late or middle of last year. They worked for 2 years, starting in January of 2021 through January of 2023. They were funded by the budgets during those years. The money we're talking about now is actually money to do reparation stuff. Okay. There's money in this, just this week, as we were saying earlier. There's now, for the first time, about $12 million set aside. They said, we got a big budget in the state of California, about $250 billion every year. That's our state budget. That's how much the state spends every year. They said, let's put, starting to start, about $10-12 million aside to do reparations. Now, to get reparations, though, you will have to apply. You will have to show that you're eligible, and then you will have to then work through a process to get what is yours. How do you do that? And how are we gonna do that? That is partly why we have Senate Bill 1403. Senate Bill 1403 will create a state agency to be the place you go to apply to be the place you go to help you show that you're eligible, to be the place to process your claims and process your payments. And part of what that agency will also do will be to help allocate that money that eventually comes out. The $12 million is not enough to do what we gotta do. It's not enough, but it's a start. And it's the first thing that we're doing. Hope that answers the question about the money and sort of clarifies the task force part again. The task force is finished. They finished their work the middle of last year. Right now, we are past task force. We are past studies. We are past discussions about what maybe should happen. Right now, we are at the point of what do we do with the money? What do we do? And that's where we are right now. So, yeah.
No, it doesn't, because you're, when you started the meeting, you said, hey, who all wants a task force? And everybody got all revved up.
Yeah.
So that confused me.
Yep.
It still sounds like.
So let me help clarify that part. So I'm talking about the state reparations task force. The city of Sacramento, though, is asking us, do we want a city of Sacramento reparations task force for the city of Sacramento to do some of the things that the state is already doing?
So that would be bringing back the task force, the money would go to the task force, and we would have to go to you to ask for our money.
This would create a city reparations task force, and then the city and us as people in the city would decide what we do, and also if we get money.
That's the part that's really, I'm not comfortable with.
Right, we really don't need more of that when we already had the AB 3121 due on.
Or that sounds like you're creating one more welfare system for us to pay for our money.
Well, potentially, but let me offer one, and this is the right question to be asking, by the way. Okay, so let's stay right here, because this is the right question to be asking. Let me help share some of the parts about this. So one, there's a state level effort going on. So the state is working on some stuff, but there are cities that are saying we're gonna do our own thing too. Now the state is way ahead of where the cities are. The state is way ahead. We're way ahead of the federal government too, but that's talk for another time. But the state is already way ahead. So the state already did a task force. The state right now is past task force, and now is what are we gonna do with what the task force said that we should do? Now, let's keep it real though. Right on. But the task force said a lot of things. One, that we should get our money, that we're owed money, and that we should get paid. But the question that we're asking is, and let's keep it real, we are also asking, do we want a task force? Do we need a task force? Some people said, some people.
As to whether or not that the city decided that there was another task force needed.
That's why we're here now. That's part of why we're here now, to get your thoughts about whether we should even do a city level task force. Now, we can decide we don't want a city level task force and just say, just skip the task force, let's go right to the money, or let's go right to the reparations. We can decide that as a city. Now, there are some consequences with that too, but that is up to us to decide. Other cities have said, we want a task force first, then the task force will help decide what we actually do. We don't have to take that route as a city. We can, but we don't have to. That's why it's important that each and every single one of you is here now. That's why it's important that each and every single one of us takes this survey. Take the survey. On the survey, there is a question that says, should we even create a task force? We don't have to. For the city. We don't have to. We can say, skip the task force, let's just get to the stuff. But that's for us to decide. I have my own thoughts. Other people may have their own thoughts too, but that's for us to decide.
May I go to these? May I go to these next two questions? Okay, here you are.
And thank you for the question, Sonny.
Okay, I just want to, Shepard. I just wanted to interject. I know they said something about there's going to be a technology institute. My concern is that can they also put a component in there for an academy for the trades for our young people, because everybody's not going to be able to. That's a good living. It's something that's sustainable, and I would like to have that student as a part of the education, not just the technology part. And then the other thing that I was wondering is that, are we gonna be taxed on any of this?
Not if I have always. To the second question, other cities that have done reparations or tried to do reparations, and in other cases where people have gotten their reparations, it wasn't taxed. Okay? So we're gonna be fighting for that. Our stuff ain't taxed, but more than that, some of us think we should not be paying taxes. For lots of anyway. All right. And to be honest with you, we actually had a bill this year that would have provided property tax rebates to everyone who is a descendant who either owned property or rented property. Okay? The bill died. Okay? The bill was killed. It was a Senate Bill 1013. Okay? So we're going to bring that bill back next year, most likely. So it's not just exempting our stuff from taxes, it's also possibly exempting us from taxes generally, and then also giving us some of that tax money back. If we can.
Have a problem with them issuing a certain amount in cash
Right.
or check. Can we opt for like no taxes federally or state for the duration of your life or whatever?
So
a generational.
You thinking exactly what I'm thinking? So first of all, federally, so we probably won't have control over federal taxes. Right? State and city stuff we can work on. So one, that's something that I want to see. That's something that we're going to be fighting for. Well, we are fighting for it now. We're going to continue to fight for it. But we cannot be, and I think you raised another point too. What I want to see is people have options. So I think people should have options for what they want as a part of their reparations portfolio, shall we say. So you should be able to go pick If you ask me, you should be able to go pick, okay, I want some of the land stuff, I want some of the house stuff. I don't need some of the education stuff because I already got a degree, whatever, but I need some of the cash money, I need some of, so you should be able to pick what you want. Like you pick a portfolio of stuff, you should be able to pick stuff. And that's what we're fighting for now. But what you see the state doing now and what you see the city starting to talk about doing now is creating the groundwork to do the stuff that we want later. And there is gonna be a period, and I just wanna keep it real with y'all continually, there is going to be a period where we spend time actually getting ready and set up to do all of the things. That's what we're doing now. That's why we're fighting to create a state agency to be able to have coordinated, organized all this. That's why we're fighting to do, to create the reparations fund, so that we have the pieces in place so that when we actually do more things, they actually work. Because this has to work. It will work, but it has to work.
Okay, next question, and then we got that gentleman way down there, this
too.
lady, and then you ladies in the back, okay?
Okay. And then, sister right here.
I think Marbell just wants to give us a general.
Yes,
Sir.
my question, I have a question.
Okay, he does have a question.
I have a question to the body. What I'd like to share is, y'all in our room, this is where we host our youth healing circle every Tuesday night. When we host our men's healing circle every Wednesday night with Hooked on Fiction, Not on Violence. My partner, Tim Poole, is the sponsor of that. And I want to make sure you guys have opportunity to not only know that, but know that we host a radio program that talks about reparations daily, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And if you're interested, I'll give you the number. It's a call-in number. You call in and you'll hear what's going on. If you want to dub in, you just press 1. You get acknowledged and you can speak if you wish. This brother here, his name is Charlton Curry. He has Big C Sports that airs 6 o'clock every day. Every day. Yep. Talks about reparations every day. Right? So we can gather information through CJ. We can gather information through our radio program. We can gather information through his program. We can tap in and we can make sure that we give ourselves an opportunity to understand what this is. Because I'm going to tell you something. I talk to people all the time, and they have an apprehension about reparations. I don't care what stage we seem to be in, there's this apprehension about whether or not it's going to, if it's real or not, right? And I understand that. I understand that, and I attempt to foster a little bit more confidence in when I talk to people, but as we grow, we have to still have the faith. And we have to develop the belief so that we can pass this on to our children, so they can be talking about it. So everybody, we want to have this as a kitchen table conversation, right? Well, we talking about where it is and talking about, hey, what we gonna do when we get it, right? And that's important for us, our mindset as a people. It's important for us to embody this as a potential reality. And as it grows, it becomes more real. So I understand your apprehension. That's what I want to say. I'm going to ask the question. If you have the apprehension, are you willing to open your mind a little more to as things develop and you see things are gradually coming to fruition? Are you willing to let go of that apprehension and throw in? Show up like you did tonight. And I'm gonna admire your everybody else that stayed. I know everybody has things to do, but the people that stayed, I admire your courage and I admire your patience, because y'all been sitting through, we've been here for hours, right? We've been here for hours. It's important, but we've been here for hours and a lot of people been sitting. I know I had to get up because I was like, if I sit too much longer, I'm gonna need some help. Come on, come here, right? So this is the thing. The apprehension that we have is it's true and it's fair. We've been betrayed throughout our tenure. We've been betrayed, right? So when we hear about something coming from somewhere else that's supposed to benefit us, it might create that apprehension. But let's just have a little bit more faith in us, because when we stand tall and represent, it limits the window for anybody to squeeze through, right? So that's all I want to say, is that we have this opportunity to be a we and make this thing be a solid movement that's irrefutable.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have. Give them that phone number.
515-605-9861. That's Monday through Friday night, 8 to 12. Just peep game. I'm sorry, I just wanted to introduce because somebody had a question. This is the internet, family. This is the information that I took concerning the next Board of Supervisors. It says Tuesday, July 12th. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I tripping? Tuesday, July 12th at 9:30 a.m. and Wednesday, July 13th. Tuesday is actually July 9th. That was the correct. So that's why I'm so glad my sister pointed that out, because I did mention July 9th the first time. But when I checked, I just rapidly took what they put me. That's why we can't trust the internet on nothing. So I want to keep it positive. July 9th, same time, County Board of Supervisors, 708th Street, Suite 2450. Okay, Tuesday, July 9th, not the 12th. Thank you.
Question here by Brother Samuel. Amen.
So my question is, on 1331, that's a state fund? Can anyone put money into that tomorrow morning?
When the bill is passed, and so the answer would be yes. Okay. But I want to just make sure folks understand what my brother Sherman is asking about. So he's asking about Senate Bill 1331. This is a bill right now that is about, what's today? This is what, June 29th? So we are about, the deadline to pass this bill is August 31st. Okay. So we're about 2 months away from passing this bill. After we pass the bill goes to the governor's desk. He has about 30 days to decide what he's going to do with it. So we'll know whether or not this bill is passed and signed into law by, let's say, early October. But Senate Bill 1331 creates something called the California Reparations and Reparative Justice Fund. It creates what I call some elbow room for us in the state treasury. So every year, California spends about $250, $300 billion a year. That's on the roads, that's on public safety, that's on everything that the state has to spend money on. We got line items in that state budget for all kind of things, for everybody else but us. Senate Bill 1331 changes that. It creates an actual fund in the state treasury called the California Reparations and Reparative Justice Fund. And to your question, yes, that fund would be open to grants, contributions, funding from state sources, from private sources, from federal sources also. And the general point that I was making earlier is still, I think, correct. We cannot do reparations without funding. Don't let people try to tell you that we can do this without no money. Please don't. Okay? First of all, they owe us money. Okay? They owe us money. Okay? Our ancestors worked for 256 plus years without a single check and a lot of bad stuff. And then there's another 150 plus years of a lot of other bad stuff. They owe us money. Let's just keep it real. They owe us, and a lot of other stuff too, but they owe us money. That's right. Internationally, when other people do reparations usually has 5 pieces to it. Okay. Usually, in any other place where they did reparations at, there's usually 5 pieces to it. Compensation, restitution, rehabilitation, guarantees of non-repetition, and what we call satisfaction. Compensation, that's the economic, financial, money part. That's the cut the check part. They owe us money, they gotta cut the check. Restitution, that's the return of land, the return of property, the restoring of us to where we would have been, could have been, should have been, had the bad things that happened to us never happened in the first place. Rehabilitation, these are what you could think of as the non-financial forms of reparations. Free legal services, free medical services, free housing, from cradle to the grave. Guarantees of non-repetition, or what I call protections. These are changes to our laws, changes to our policies, changes to the systems, so that what happens to us never happens again. And finally, what we call satisfaction. This is not what it may sound like. It's not that everybody is satisfied, okay? Even though hopefully everybody will be. What satisfaction means is some people call these the more symbolic forms of reparation. So like changing our textbooks to make sure that the actual history of what actually happened to us is told. Removing public displays of our oppressors and replacing them with things that look like what's in this room right here. And that's in this museum down the hall there. That's what we call satisfaction. Okay? So compensation plus restitution plus rehabilitation plus guarantees of non-repetition plus satisfaction equals reparations. It's not reparations if it doesn't have all 5 of those pieces to it. And again, long answer, even longer, to your question, Brother Sherman, yes, that fund would be open to contributions from the state instead of. Now, we already know though that the state is putting and setting aside $10 million already. That's coming from state budget money. That's coming from our state budget itself. That money presumably will go into the reparations fund, and then that money will have to be appropriated out.
Great answer. Okay, we have another question here. You want to stand up, Ms. Chapman?
Ms. Chapman, great name.
I want to say, CJ, I met you 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
I met you at Grant, at the MLK March
Yep.
after.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back in full circle.
Right on.
I'm saying this because I'm just now knowing about reparations.
Right on.
So my question is, how do we get our young people, how do we get other people in general, the information, because they're not if they knew, maybe they would have a different mindset of, I don't need to rob this person, or I don't need to rob this store because I know this is coming.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we get the word out?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer in a few ways. I'm gonna try to do it as briefly as possible. I'm gonna start first with some of what we are doing. So, probably 3 or 4 times this year already, we've been up at Sac State, talking to the college students, and we've been at Sac City, talking to the college students. So part of the answer is actually going to where the young folks are. I think a lot of times in the organizing world and this kind of political world, we ask folks to come to us. And it's what we did tonight. We asked you to come to us. But that ain't enough. And that don't work most of the time. What works all the time is when you go to where the people already are. We have to do more of going to where our people already are or already gonna be. So that includes the colleges for the young folks who are in college, but let's even take it further. The high school, the elementary schools. Are there any teachers in here right now? Okay, so before we leave, educators, please, so I have your contact, but let's reconnect if I haven't connected with you recently. But I would like to come to your classroom and actually talk to your students about what's going on, if you would have us. That's part of the first part. Second part is though, I'm gonna say I'm 40 years old. All right, I'm 40 years old. All right. Okay.
You're only 30 is lying.
Right on. Okay. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I feel. Thank you. So, but it hit different when it comes from somebody their own age. When it comes from their own generation. So what we actually also need are young folks who are excited enough about it to take it to their peers themselves, because they know how to talk to their peers better than I can talk to them. They know where and when to reach their people and their peers better than I ever would. But we also need, for those of us who have kids, put your hand up if you have a aged child, right? I believe because I think we all need some of our young folks to also take this to the young folks also.
But once again, our young people, you have to give them an incentive.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
ain't moving unless they go, well, how much they gonna pay?
Mhm.
You know, because they need stuff. But, social media is all.
It works.
It works, but, had you done like a commercial or something like that? What would that look like if he does something and it runs consistently? Because like I said, these kids are influenced by Snapchat and Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is yes, we've done some of that work, but we definitely have to do more. But so let me give you an example. So I'm the lead organizer at the Coalition for Justice, Equity, and TikTok. TikTok especially, but so I'm also a policy manager at the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. We work with folks who are currently incarcerated and formerly incarcerated to make sure that when they come home from prison, they stay out of prison. We in the juvenile halls here in Sacramento once or twice a week, and we in the juvenile halls in LA once or twice a week also. This Tuesday, we're hosting a listening session. I'm going to your question because we're hosting a youth listening session at our offices on 28th and I think G in Midtown, where we're bringing in about 15 to 20 young folks who all have some kind of system impact. And there goes so that's ARC's Instagram right there. That's Nicholas right there. They work in our LA office. 99% of our staff are formerly incarcerated themselves. But this Tuesday, we're hosting a listening session for youth. We're paying them $200 to show up. $200, free lunch. All you gotta do is show up and tell us about your life. Okay? Okay. Okay. So you also do have to incentivize folks. Okay? All right? Now you'll see more of that in the reparation space, but that's one example of how we're incentivizing the young folks to participate. Because you're right, they got a lot going on in their lives, and they've been pulled in many different directions. Now social media helps, and again, we are heavy on social media also, but really you got to connect with folks in multiple different ways because people connect in multiple different ways. Everybody here is on social media, but then you here, but then you somewhere else. So we have to be able to connect with folks, and we have to meet people where they are more. Okay, we're not doing enough of that now. Now, every day, I'm glad to say that every day, more people know about this, but we need more people to know about it faster because things are moving fast at the state level specifically, and at the city level soon. Things are moving fast. Now, also, I want to say too, and I want to put some of our Kib, I don't want to put you on the spot here, brother, but I also want to say I think we also would be benefited from even more support from our elected officials and from our government officials also. And so, we think we would, really love as much support as possible from anyone who's already in some kind of position of power to continue to help spread the word about what's going on, also. So that's part of what we're doing. Yes.
Okay. One of the things I've heard a lot about numbers and stats. I heard a statement here said we've been studied enough. We have been studied enough. And when I think about my Black men and I think about my sisters and how we have been vilified in the media on an international level, and yet they want us to come up and say the field is level and that our kids have all the access to education that anyone else has. And I just want to say this. This gentleman by the name of Ward Connerly from UC Berkeley took phonics out of school. That is the code to learning. If our children are not taught phonics in the first or second grade, they pretty much are on a pathway to the penitentiary as far as the educational system is concerned, as far as the notes that are put in when they're testing poorly. So I want to say this, when we look at programs that we're putting together, can we look at how we can teach our own children phonics? How we can teach our own children how important it is you can critical think, and you can because they're gonna be successful. And we used to be that way. In my home, Jet Magazine was what was happening. Essence Magazine and Ebony Magazine. But I will never forget when Johnson's Publications put out that 4-volume of Black History. My dad bought that, and guess what? That was my summer homework. I had to read all 4 books. And guess what? I did it. And I thank him even in heaven for purchasing that. But I was a fortunate kid. I didn't have a mother, but I had a father who loved me. And I had World Book Encyclopedia at home. And what I want to say is this: we got to teach our kids that learning is fun, because we got to compete. And we need programs that are going to make our kids feel happy to learn English, to learn Spanish, to learn Chinese. And when we create those programs, I would like to see that in there for our kids. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll make one comment real quick, and then I want to.
We got one more question before we wrap it
One
up.
question, and then I'm gonna, real quick on the education part. So, I think you heard Assemblymember McCarty talk about Assemblymember McCarty has a bill focused on education. I believe it's called AB 280. I don't think he said the bill number, but from my memory, I think it's Assembly Bill 280. You'll see more education-related bills. So I think I'll say this now. You hear from me now. I expect to see a bill to make college free for all descendants of U.S. child slavery in the state of California early next year. Okay, but that is not enough, because we have something else going on in the education system. It's not just about what we call access, right? So when we say access, we're really talking about, can you get the thing? Can you get the college degree? We got a problem on the returns side too. What do you get from when after you got the college degree? How much more wealthy does that make you? And right now we have a problem, okay? We have a problem, right? We have a problem on both sides of that coin. I think 80% of Black folks don't have a college degree at all. So maybe a little bit higher, actually. So 8 out of 10 Black folks do not have a college degree at all, okay? But for those who have a college degree, they are less wealthy than white folks who dropped out of high school. And I'm gonna say that again. 8 out of 10 Black folks have no college degree at all. But of the 20%, let's say, of Black folks who do have a college degree, most of them are less wealthy than the average white person who never finished high school. Okay? You have to take my word for it. That is data that comes out that we look at every 2 or 3 years. We see, it's been the case every 2 or 3 years since we've been looking. So something else is wrong. That's partly why part of the reparations, we keep saying, we gotta return your wealth to you. We have to actually directly return wealth to you directly, individually. That's partly what has to happen. Because yes, we can do the school thing. Yes, we can get the degrees. Yes, education is important just because, but we also wanted to make your life better too. That's part of why folks get education, to make their lives better, part of why. So we have another kind of problem too, which is really on the other side. That's partly also what we're working on too. And I'm gonna get to the last question here if I can, and then, yes.
So,
Your name, please.
sorry, my name is Cheryl
Hey, sir.
So, in the bill, does it have continuing budget authority to go each year? So it's not, because state general fund usually one and done,
Yeah.
limited time limited,
Yep.
so does it have a continuing authority until you kind of get it together?
So not in SB 1331. SB 1331 creates a permanent fund. So to that extent, it is permanent, right? But there's no permanent allocation of the funding, which is what you're really asking about.
Yeah, right.
Now, that though is partly answered in the budget bill that was passed this week. So in the budget bill that was passed this week, that's the bill that has the $12 million set aside for reparations in it. It says something in the line item that something like the Department of Finance or the Director of Finance can augment this fund as additional needs come up, okay? So that is the signal that there will be more coming, but we need it to say that specifically and explicitly. That's part of what we're fighting for in the next year budget too.
And one more thing, about building another state bureaucratic agency.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I think you ought to create a new structure. You got 58 counties, maybe something local that has a joint kind of commission, similar to what Dr. Flo was suggesting. You got to create new structures where people oversight let communities decide how to distribute that money and take it from the state, because state's messy.
Yeah.
Can I comment
And I
on
want
that?
to,
real
that
quick?
is a perfect question.
Because that's what Waco did when they were trying to kick all the Black inhabitants out of the Fillmore district, and they formed this coalition called Waco, and they were actually able to sue the city of San Francisco at the federal level because they were encroaching on their rights, and that's something that we should make sure that the communities have the right to say what goes on in the community. So that's an excellent point.
Thank you for that. I want to thank you for that question, well, both questions, but specifically that one, because the last question was something that the State Reparations Task Force fought over. Why do we need another state office? Let's just do other things, right? Why do we need an actual agency? And this is the right question to be asking. Everything that we're doing right now is up to us and up for us to criticize and scrutinize and make better. But you don't make it better without questioning it. Everything needs to be questioned right now. Do we even need a state agency? Do we even need a state task force or a city task force? But to your question, so the state task force fought over this. They came to, I think, a good place. So the way that the state task force recommended the creation of this new reparations agency is that there will be a headquarters in Sacramento and then satellite offices across the state in all counties. That then gets to the opportunity for us at the county and the local level to help influence what happens in these offices. It kind of has to be like that because we can't ask everybody to come to Sacramento and apply for reparations, right? There has to be stuff locally in your community too. Also, we have to be a part of designing what this new agency does, how it does it, who gets hired, who gets to run the agency, and how it works. Part of what we're doing now is trying to figure out the answers to these questions. And I don't have all the answers to these questions because we're still creating the answers right now. Like literally right now, we're helping to create the answers to these questions. You're actually helping us answer these questions right now. So, but to your point, I completely agree. That's what we're fighting for, because you're right. The state can be messy. Anybody here? There's a phrase we use called process racism, where it's like they make it so hard for you to get the stuff. Right. Right. Anybody here that been on any kind of program heard horror stories about how hard it is to get your stuff. We don't want to We don't want to recreate that. Let me keep it real with y'all too. So let me just give you one example. So the state of California actually created a reparations program in the last 2 or 3 years for individuals and residents who were victims of forced and involuntary sterilization. If you don't know, California had a forced and involuntary sterilization program for women in prisons from about the early 1900s to the 1980s. Okay? California in 2020, 2021 passed a bill to provide reparations and direct payments, direct compensation, money, checks to the survivors of this forced sterilization program. So we went and talked to some of those folks. We were curious, how did your program work? What worked well? What didn't work well? What advice do you have for us? They told us, one, that they wish they had their own state agency, their own state office set up to actually do it, because they had to fight so hard with the same system that did the bad things to them They told us that most of the people who applied got denied and that they couldn't appeal because there was rules about could they give you your records and all that and privacy and all that. I spoke specifically to a woman named Kelly Gillen, whose legal case was the origin of the reparations effort, sister out of Oakland. And she told us, listen, one, create your own agency, create your own office, so that way you don't have to create your own institution. That way you don't have to fight the same bureaucracy that did the bad things to you in the first place to give you your damn money back.
Separate from them.
And right. So that's part of what they recommended to us also. So we're taking those words of advice, but you're right, the state can be messy. Cities can be messy, counties can be messy, and let's keep it real. The nonprofit space can be messy too. Okay, let's just say the quiet part out loud. Okay, the nonprofit space can be messy. As someone who works in the nonprofit space, we know there's a lot of BS that goes on. There's people getting money. It's being recorded. I already got an email on the way. But that's just the truth, and we know that. Most of our people are not connected to no nonprofits. Most of our people are not connected to no community organizations. That's most of our people, unfortunately or fortunately in some cases. Part of our job is gonna be to take this to our people directly. And we have to do it in a new way. This is an opportunity for us to do it in a new way. We're early enough in the process right now that we can help design what it looks like. Okay, one more question?
Yeah.
Well, you know, on the cameraman.
Right on, what's up, brother?
Just the cameraman.
You want to take a picture while you're doing that?
Yeah, go for it. My name's Kamani Kira, you know me, Chris. My comment is more about behavioral reparation rather than systemic reparation. Because behavioral reparation, I'm a linguist and behavioral scientist first and foremost, from a media person. And behavioral reparation goes back 600 years to the creation of the white and black paradigm, linguistically, which we're not responsible for.
Right.
But that's a what we call conjecture-based policing. And that conjecture is based on the visual appearance and is formed around whiteness, blackness. But what does white and black mean? White means holy, black means unholy. That's literally what they mean. And the paradigm was born from one man. His name's Robert Baker. He sailed to West Africa in 1553. I call him Bobby B. He crashed. He was with like, I don't know, 14 other people. They all died. And he traveled up the west coast of Africa by himself. He ran into like 7 or 8 different nations and journals. The only thing he wrote about was how black everybody was. He didn't write about our currencies, our languages, our governments. So he had all these journals. Oh my, all these people are black. We can't explain it. So the French pick him up, they bring him back to England in 1553. And for the next 20, 30 years, that society is debating how the African could be so black. Where did that come from? They come up with the curse of Ham tale. So if you know the curse of Ham, Noah's on the ship, he gets drunk, passes out in some hay, and he has sons that are supposed to, well, one of his sons, Ham, comes along, sees Noah and doesn't cover him up because he's shamed at his dad. And then his second son comes and does cover him up. So Noah wakes up from his drunken stupor. He curses Ham and he says, "You and all of your descendants shall serve your brothers in perpetuity." And so they said that our skin is that curse of Ham. So this is 600 years old, and that is the paradigm that has shaped the white and black system that we live in today. So when I'm talking about reparations, the systemic accounting that we need to accomplish today that you guys are pursuing is vital. And then on top of that, there's a behavioral reparation, how we address each other linguistically. And really, it's about the platform of self-righteousness and how that's manipulated to control people. And part of that self-righteousness, and I'll end on this point, goodness. Yeah, there's a lot that we have to repair in terms of behavior. Like I was born on crack in '89. I was taken out of my biological family at 6 months old. My auntie Brenda, at 19, she tried to get me out of the system. They want to charge her $20,000. So I tell everybody, if the cartel did that, it's clear as day what that is.
Kidnapping, or what do you call the?
Human trafficking. But if the state of California does it, but okay. You know, it is what it is. And so we talk about intersections with homelessness and houselessness. It's something like over 68% of houseless people come from the foster system.
Yeah.
So I remember reading a story about somebody who went through the same thing I was. And they said that you go through the first separation, it's almost like a suicide bomber came and took your whole family. That's really, and then so you do that to a child, baby. Then you put them in the system, you sell them to strangers. To my fosters, they paid money too. You can call it fees. And another $20,000, right? So every time a child's taken out of the home, it's $250,000 of economy that's produced every single time in the state of California.
Yes, it
That's
is.
why we produce twice as many foster children as any other state in the country. And when we look at the intersections with houselessness and the prison system, you will find that the populations of these communities are over 60–70% former foster youth. So we talk about reparations, there's the accounting system, but then there's behavioral reparations beyond that.
Yes.
And so what we're responsible for is a very tough conversation, but I want to talk about opportunity, because we have an opportunity going forward. We transact our economy through intellectual property. Now, we all can't go out in the land and claim property. A lot of us have mixed, I'm pretty clearly Afro-Indigenous, but a lot of us in the room are mixed Native and Black. And so we have a right to this land too. We can't go put the stakes in the ground and measure our distances and plot everything out. It's all owned by the government, so we were locked out of that practice. So with intellectual property, we can actually do that now. And in the way that we define intellectual property, like I said, I know this point, just to add a little clout to the conversation, my grandmother's cousin, my biological family is James Earl Jones. So,
Okay, all right.
and this is what I'm talking about. In intellectual property, we have a opportunity to transition the economy from one unit of intellectual property, where Star Wars exists as one unit, and James works for Star Wars, and he contributes impact, probably the most vital impact of the entire. You know, he's the rug that ties the room together. But what was he paid for the first movie? Anybody know? $7,000. $7,000. And he'll tell you to this day, it's a fair rate, because for him it was 2 weeks of work. But I'm trying to say, hey, impact. So now we have a chance to say Star Wars is not one unit of intellectual property that belongs to Disney. It's actually a puzzle of 5 million pieces. And if James creates 0.005% impact, he'll own 0.005% of the pieces. It will anchor to James 0.005% of the net profit from Star Wars. Now everybody in this room should be entitled to that same exact translation of labor into property. And that's what I'll end on. So behavioral reparation, we have a chance to transition the economy into our labor being owned as property, and we could just do it. We don't need to ask for permission. That's the beauty of it. So thank y'all for listening.
Thank you. I'm gonna pick up from what the brother's saying. There's a couple of pieces that I wanna add to. So one, on the black-white thing and the behavioral parts of this too. So, yeah, you're right. You know, what we describe as, you know, blackness and we lift up right, you know, now, is not, it doesn't come from us, right? This label we call blackness was actually, you know, given to us, right? We weren't describing ourselves as this hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, right? We're describing ourselves in different ways. One of the things I think that's interesting about the current reparations movement is that really it is focused on our ancestry, who we are as a people, what we've contributed to this country. That is the key defining thing that makes you actually eligible for reparations in California. We didn't say this yet, right? To be eligible for reparations in California, you need to have two things going for you, generally speaking. First, you need to be a current California resident. Secondly, you need to be a descendant of someone whose ancestors were enslaved somewhere in these United States. Now, that is important. One, because that's who this effort is for. But also I think it gets to your other point about this question of race and how we use race. And we use race, I think, in many ways to our positive, I think it's used against us in many ways to our negative too. But the main point to say is that this effort really is about the descendants of persons who were enslaved in this country. And to your second point about the intellectual property, one of the areas of harm, so the State Reparations Task Force looked at 12 areas of harm and then put reparation recommendations for each one of those. Slavery, racial terror, political disenfranchisement, mass incarceration and over-policing, harms in healthcare, environmental racism, harms in education, stolen labor, of course, the wealth gap. One of the other ones, though, is theft of cultural and intellectual property. I think it's chapter 7 or 8 in the final report. So, and we actually had a 2-day series of hearings at the state level specifically about the theft of our cultural and intellectual property. It is tremendous value to that. So you should be expecting, but not just expect, you should be helping to design now actual reparations that account for that and repair that. What we want that to look like, well, the State Reparations Task Force has a bunch of ideas. They want to change laws about who can own patents and who can own this and all that. They want actual royalties and monies returned to folks. But there's other things that we can be doing too. So I just wanted to highlight for you that that's actually one of the areas that the State Reparations Task Force did focus on in its 2 years of work, and now is crafting recommendations for, of course, at the legislation level. I'll stop there though. I think we're done. If not,
I got 2 more things.
come on. Answer to the last question.
I have kids that have been affected in a lot of ways, but I didn't mention it when the candidate was here. But my son was 13 and he got in a car accident. He's in a coma, and one of the drugs that he was on was fentanyl. And so when he got out of the coma, going back to trying to be himself, he has a traumatic brain. So he got, when he was 15, he got a hold of some street drugs, the Percocet pills, blue pills. So it went from the blue pills to fentanyl. And from 15, this whole time I was asking for help. But they kept saying, well, we gotta wait till he's 18 because we don't have detox places. We don't have a place for young adults, teenagers to go get help. So it took my son is 19 now. It took him this long to get the help. And so with all this reparations, there needs to be some type of places for our youth to go to, at-risk youth. They have trauma, they self-medicate, but there's no places for them to heal. There's no place for them to get help. And then my last thing is, they're influenced by, so they have, we don't have a performing arts school. A lot of these kids don't do sports. A lot of these kids do TV, they all, so we need to teach them that. And then we also need to teach them public speaking. Because how many times have you seen a kid, feel me, because my son does that. You feel me? You know what I'm talking about? When they get in front of the camera, they don't know how to speak. So I think we need to teach our youth, our people, how to speak in front of a group of people. I yield.
Thank you for that. On the fentanyl question, so one, I'm sorry to hear that, first of all. And I can relate. My youngest brother actually, it wasn't fentanyl, but it was something that he was exposed to when he was 14, 13, and never the same again. And that obviously increased his chances of connecting with the law enforcement, and that happened multiple times also. So one, you should expect, and you should also be helping us to design solutions to that as a part of the reparations package, specifically in the part that deals with our health and our youth too.
Social and health.
Right.
Yes.
Right now, last piece here on the education part. So yes, you should expect and also help us to build and design into the reparations package that comes next, because we're gonna be doing this every year, probably for the next, until we get it done. And correctly, or get it done correctly, rightly. So, all the things that are missing, all the things that we're doing now that we need to be doing better. But I want to say one other thing too, and I learned, and I realized this in the last couple of weeks, is public speaking. Also, I would like to see more, but also the political and policy work. I'm in that Capitol building and around those buildings pretty much every other day, every other day or so. There's people in that building that's discussing and cutting up deals and money every single day. The knowledge of the political process is an actual asset. The knowledge of the political process is an asset. It's also a weapon. If I was somebody who didn't have the interest of our people at heart, I could possibly understand why you would want to keep that information private, because it's powerful. If you know about who to talk to, when the committee hearings are, when the votes are happening, you have an advantage over other people, because people are fighting for money every day in that building. So if you fight for money, and if it's competition for money, you want to do everything you can to make yourself to have the best advantage. One of the things people do to give themselves the best advantage is hide knowledge, hide information, keep it to themselves. And so that is also what I want to see us more doing. That's partly why when I talk, I try to give a little bit of the political knowledge too, as much as I can, as much as I know. Because I felt, the last couple of weeks, I was telling somebody, I felt cheated because I didn't know a lot of this and I didn't get taught none of this. So anyway.
Well, where did you go to get the knowledge so we can continue
to be honest with you,
resource for us to educate
actually,
ourselves as well?
I didn't go to no school or nothing like that. It was going to the Capitol. It's going, okay? Now, I think what my responsibility now though is to actually help share this knowledge with other people now.
Yes, sir.
So that's partly why I'm glad to see like a lot of folks we work with, came to the Capitol for the first time over the past few months. First time in those buildings, first time taking those meetings, etc. So this is part of why, part of what the other parts of the education I think we will need to build into what we do now and later, because this knowledge is powerful. I've seen it used as a weapon probably about 50 times just in the last month or two. So with that, I'll stop. I know we got more stuff to get to. Thank you.
Okay. That's why I'm cleaning this area up. Reparation superstar.
I got one track for y'all. It's called Rebuilding Culture.
Excuse me, my queen. My bad.
This for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between and all y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. And we gon' hold it down. This for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between, just all y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. And we gon' hold it down. Solid to my roots, that's really all I know. And I don't know that much, I still got room to grow. If I ever need advice, it's for my elders folk. Time changes these connections, I can't let them go. Power to the third new generation coming. I'ma make sure that I play my part for all my youngest. Grow food, learn trade, you see me on this something. Gotta keep the business structure to collect the funding. Soaking up the game, they see me overflowing. Our ancestors put in work, we gotta keep it going. everything that helped me stay in motion. I'm forever grateful, you already know it. We gon' live forever, we live in abundance. And we gon' feed y'all too, that's how we stay 100. Meetings with the elders, pulling things together. Believing in each other, that's the hidden treasure. Hey, hey, this for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between, and all y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. And we gon' hold it down. This for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between. All y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. Still in it for myself, but I do this for y'all. I really do think that I need this just as much as y'all. But when you need the motivation, I'm the one to call. I refuse to let any of y'all be my downfall. This is for the culture and this what we pushing. Family business, meeting family, shit, we steady cooking. Looking out for one another, that's why I be looking. Busy working, people have to tap in with the bookings. I got close to press video shoots, my children need me. All I hear is I see you whenever people see me. Still winning off the bases, at home burning CDs. I truly value what I do, I can't be doing freebies. Like Lil Russell State, you better make an offer. What was working and started moving smarter. I gotta make it make sense, that's a self-starter. So we see the money on my people, that's gonna take it farther. Let's go. This for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between, and all y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. We gon' hold it down. This for the elders and the youth and all y'all in between. All y'all in between, and all y'all in between. We build the culture, we gon' hold it down by any means. Thank you, y'all. Again, I am Mr. Lewis. I'm just here to continue to empower the community, uplift everybody, you know, keep all that self-sufficiency going, grow food, learn trades. Yes, yes. Get y'all money, get y'all money.
Well, we got Double O in the building too, so while we cleaning up, y'all can just get the party going. This is 40 Acres and a Mule. This is the anthem for the movement, y'all. So bust the DJ. Hey, can y'all find that land? Can y'all find that land? Turn it a little way up. Because I can't get it out of my mind. It's hard. Can't get it out of my mind. That land was hard. Can't get it out of my mind. Ha, ha, ha. They promised me, they promised you 40 acres and a mule. They promised me, they promised you 40 acres and a mule. They promised me, they promised you 40 acres and a mule. They promised me, they promised you. Just pay back some state, chicken change, Federal Reserve, some say you won't last. What goes on today, we take us from the past, but let us take us a flashback to 1863. Slaves get free, catastrophe, 40 acres and a mule. They promised me, they promised you. Tell them to stop. Got a real one in the building. Shout out, brother, that's what's up, y'all. This is our anthem, let me know. No longer would I play it. Cause I'ma write my own story and call that G-Thing her story. Can't get it, what? All right, y'all get a chair and help these brothers clean up. We get out of here, come on.